On this 24th of June 2020, it is a very fine Wednesday morning. Hoping that you've woken up well, fine and healthy. Thank you very much for keeping it KBC. We are broadcasting live here from the Kenya Broadcasting Corporation here in Nairobi. My name is Aguko. Remember, we are live on Facebook and on our social media platforms. On our website at www.kbc.co.ke. A warm welcome to you. This is Good Morning Kenya. We have a lot in store for you today, including on my end, we have on the viewpoint, we shall be putting into focus what has been trending this week. Remember, we've had the recent trends in Jubilee Party, where the president has kicked out politicians, key politicians from positions in parliament. And this is in regards to both the National Assembly and the Senate, including the recent event where we had the removal from office of the leader of majority, that is Honorable Aden Duale. And now we have Honorable Amos Kimunya. Will he deliver? These are just some of the questions that we shall be answering this morning, including a discussion on one Kitui governor, that is Charity Ngilu. Remember, she has been accused of violating the Constitution and the provisions of the County Government Act. Yesterday, a notice of motion to impeach her, that is Governor Ngilu, was served to the clerk of the County Assembly, awaiting tabling and debate next Wednesday. What is the case? What is your prediction? Well, make sure to tune in, as we shall be joined by Karl Max Odhiambo and Alex Manyasi, who are both governance and policy experts, including retired Major Peter Mwithi, putting this into perspective on The Viewpoint.
Right, and this morning on our roads, our focus will be on the 1.1 kilometer road that was already opened up to the public. This is the Upper Hill Mbagathi Link Road. This is one of the recent roads to be reconstructed, and given the fact that there's quite a number of activities, especially as you head over to that route. So this morning we look at how that has been impacting traffic, and also try to see whether they ensure that at least they also reconstruct the non-motorized transport system on that specific road, even as the reconstruction process was ongoing. This morning we try and see how traffic will be doing like on that specific road, and also the development of that reconstruction process. This will be on the Upper Hill Mbagathi Link Road. Many thanks for making time this morning. My name is Doreen Arange.
Good morning once again. It's always a pleasure to have you on board on Good Morning Kenya. I'm Regina Manyara. On just including the stories that have been making headlines in the last 24 hours, we're also going to be looking at issues of corruption, while the integrity, or other persons, officials at the Anti-Corruption Commission say that cases need to be solved at least in 2 years to pave way, for justice. As they say, justice delayed is justice denied. That coming up in not too long in the headlines.
Traffic now, Upper Hill Mbagathi Link Road is our focus this morning, just looking at how traffic is doing like. But before we get to look about that, to check that, let me just show you the images of that specific road. This is the new Mbagathi Upper Hill Link Road, one of the recent roads to be reconstructed in the city center. Actually, it's a 1.1 dual kilometer road, and it was just reconstructed given the fact that there's quite a number of businesses, I can tell you for a fact, along this specific roads. Places such as like Westlands as well as Upper Hill, those places where people really relocated to these specific areas because of business kind of activities. If you can remember, back in the day, numerous businesses were being done in the city. This is in Nairobi CBD, but it just turned out that that would not accommodate everyone. So most businesses relocated to places such as this one, which is Upper Hill, and some others in places such as Westlands. And that is why you have seen a lot of reconstruction process happening in the specific areas. One is which is our focus this morning, which is this Upper Hill. And just from what you're seeing in our images, look like this dual carriage road has been because it has been taking a bit of time for this reconstruction process. And what I was telling you in terms of businesses, this is how it just looks like. This is just one of the images of Upper Hill, looking at the kind of business structures along this specific road. And also not forgetting the fact that there's also a number of residents that just stay along this area. But compared to the number of businesses, then businesses outweigh the residents. And so that's why it was necessary at least reconstruct this road, make it a dual carriage road, make it easy for people that are heading over to their businesses. But before I show you the images of the NMT, that is the non-motorized transport system, whether or not they ensure that that had been put in place, let me just show you how traffic is doing like on that specific road. So this is how it's looking like. Traffic, this is on Upper Hill Mbagathi interlink road, and it just looks like at least that reconstruction process has or is serving its purpose, because when you look at in terms of traffic, there's clearly no heavy traffic build-up on this road, and this is actually as you leave the city center, which is quite unlikely because unlike other roads where we normally look at, where we normally spot traffic on lanes that are leaving the estates as you come to the city center, this one normally we would expect to spot traffic on lanes that is coming from the CBD as you head over to Upper Hill in the early morning hours, simply because people are heading over to those businesses, activities, or even just going about any kind of activities on this specific area. But as of now, there's barely any traffic just on a specific area, and this is just after. Actually, this is on that lane that is just as you head over to the interlink way. That is where there's a bit of a traffic snarl. But in as much as, yes, there's a bit of traffic, it is quite manageable, because just from what you're seeing on our map, it is moving at a pretty fast pace. But also, just like the major roads that we normally look at, such as Thika Road, Mombasa Road, as well as Outer Ring, where we normally spot traffic police early, up and bright, to try and see how best they can control traffic. This is one road whereby traffic police are also normally stationed very early, and especially just as you leave Haile Selassie Avenue roundabout, that's where the traffic police are normally stationed at, because when you look at Upper Hill Road, that is just where it begins, going all the way to places such as Kenyatta, going all the way to places such as Mbagathi as you use the City Mortuary roundabout, as well as all the way to Ngong Road. But clearly, as of now, there's no heavy traffic build-up. In fact, it's moving at a pretty fast pace, just on some specific area, and this is next to the Mutual Towers, where there's a bit of a traffic snarl. But again, even on that specific area next to the Mutual Towers, it is one of those business structures. And like I keep telling you, in areas where it's either bus terminals or there's, the large-scale business structures or even malls, that is what we'd expect to see on our roads in terms of gridlock. And that is no different on this area. But in as much as, yes, there's a bit of a traffic there, but at least it's quite manageable. But on major parts of this road, this is the Upper Hill Road, there's barely any heavy traffic buildup like how we'd expect to see, given the fact that it is one of those busy roads. As I had mentioned to you, just that specific road begins from just after the Haile Selassie Avenue roundabout, heading over all the way to Upper Hill, all the way to Kenyatta, branching off to the City Mortuary roundabout, heading all the way to Mbagathi, to Ngong Road, to Valley Road. So again, it's one of those busy roads. And just as you branch off from the Haile Selassie roundabout before you join to that interlink, again, also moving at a pretty fast pace. There's barely any heavy traffic build-up there. Except on the lane that is leaving the estates. Now, it's quite a bit different, because when you look at the interlink way, there's a bit of traffic on the lane that is leaving the city center as you head over to Upper Hill, but I already told you the reason as to why that is happening there. But when you come to the Haile Selassie roundabout, as you just join to Upper Hill Road itself, there's just a bit of a traffic snarl up on the lane that is leaving the estates there, or even places such as Kenyatta, coming all the way to the city center through the Haile Selassie Avenue roundabout. But on the other lane, so this is the one that is leaving the roundabout, heading over to Upper Hill, and all the estates and all the areas enjoying to this route. On that specific lane, there's no traffic at all, moving at a pretty fast pace. Now, what this means is that if you're leaving whichever area you are leaving this early morning, and you are heading over to any of your business activities, this is in Upper Hill area or any kind of activities along that specific route, then this is the best time for you to do that, because just as you leave the roundabout going all the way to Haile Selassie, this is really the best time for you to do that, because then in fact there's no traffic at all, moving really fast. Now let me show you the images of those non-motorized transport system, because I had mentioned to you some time back that the Kenyan Urban Roads Authority had said that any road that has been earmarked for reconstruction, they will ensure that at least they put up the non-motorized transport. I'll be telling you more about this image probably in our next link up segment. For now, so up next, our segment in the headlines.
In the headlines starts now. Let's take a look at what has been making news stories both nationally and internationally. We'll be taking a look at different dailies this morning: the Standard newspaper, the Daily Nation, the People's Daily, and the Star. We're keeping you updated and informed. Remember, the hashtag, as always, is Good Morning Kenya. Tell us your thoughts on this at Ram Aguko, at Doreen Arange, and at Ray Manyara. The official station handle is at KBC Channel 1, at Jane Wambui is our handles. Make sure that you keep tweeting and keep texting. On the front page of the Standard, we have a story on the impeachment of Governor Anne Waiguru. All eyes on senators as Kirinyaga rot laid bare. Trial of ousted Kirinyaga Governor Anne Waiguru started yesterday, which doctors tabling a ledger of failures that put public lives at risk. Now, to open the page here, we have Waiguru accused of faking trips tenders. MCAs were the first to argue their case before the Senate committee. Now, an alleged 10.6 million Kenyan shillings irregular travel allowance and awarding of multi-million shilling contracts to cronies are some of the grounds put forward by Kirinyaga County Assembly to uphold the impeachment of embattled Governor Anne Waiguru. 165,375 shillings is the amount withdrawn on June 18th. We are talking about travel payments. We are talking about over 300,000 shillings, the amount withdrawn on September 2019. We are talking about over 10 million Kenyan shillings, which is the total amount paid to the governor's personal account held at Equity Bank. Impeachment hearing against Kirinyaga governor begins. But on this other side, we have governor run down health sector. 2 doctors tell house. Now, the former Kirinyaga Health Executive, Dr. Agnes Gashoki, and Kenya Practitioners Medical and Dentist Union Secretary for Central Region, Dr. Gor Gudi, boldly registered their frustrations after engaging Anne Waiguru to address a healthcare crisis that increased mortality in the county. The former CEC resigned after attempts to convince the governor to employ more health workers because of natural attrition of staff, but she did not act. Some medics worked without leave and suffered miscarriages. Governor ran down health sector. 2 doctors tell house.
Now, still keeping up with what is happening there, we're going to be focusing on that and so much more, including issues of Waiguru that have taken center stage in different newspapers this morning. With me with the Daily Nation and the Star, we have similar or rather headers that are quite catchy. We have Waiguru faces accusers before Senate team. While there you see Anne faced. Waiguru plays phone games at impeachment. Remember, if you're on social media towards the end of the day yesterday, Kenyans were already, judging a governor, Anne Waiguru, a little bit harshly, if you ask me. She was playing solitaire, and questions are abound. Well, if you have already lawyers, I don't know how Ram's opinion or Doreen's opinion is to that. When you have lawyers doing the work for you, then do you have to keep twiddling your thumbs? My opinion is that even if she was dozing or staring out in the space, she would have still made headlines. That's one of the headlines, or rather double headlines, that we have on newspapers this morning. Now, just to quote an excerpt there, and not even just an excerpt, is my favorite part of the Star, usually the caricature. down there, or rather what you want to refer to as a cartoon, impeachment fever. We have there a supposed caricature of Anne Waiguru and Charity Ngilu there. It says, achoo. We'll be keeping you headlines on that, or rather keeping tabs on those particular headlines, given that we have already the sounds and pictures of what happened in the Senate. But before we give you the sounds and pictures of what happened, rather transpired at the Senate, how about we get to see what the People Daily has in regard to that story?
There's a similar story on the ongoing proceedings of Governor Anne Waiguru. The caption on the People's Daily this morning in the same breath just reads that MCA's Waiguru used proxies to steal 145 million, where it continues to say that Governor Anne Waiguru used proxies and fictitious company to award herself and her cronies 145 million Kenyan shillings worth of tenders and allowances. This is from the Kirinyaga County government, and the Senate was told that yesterday as well. Now, laying their impeachment case against the governor, members of the county assembly claimed that she used her office improperly and irregularly confer a benefit to herself by drawing allowances even when she did not travel per se. This was according to the MCA ward Mutira. This is Mutira ward in Kirinyaga County. David Wangui, who is the mover of that specific impeachment motion, he said that the governor was paid 10.6 million shillings as impressed, but there was no evidence that she traveled per se. We also have images of the Kirinyaga County governor there, his husband, also a lawyer, Kamotho Waiganjo, as well as the lawyer there. But we continue to see what will happen. The hearing started yesterday. It's expected to still continue today.
Before as we mentioned earlier, we had the sounds and sights of what was happening yesterday at the Senate, given that the hearings are set to proceed this morning. Waiguru, in a rejoinder, she dismissed the evidence, arguing that the county assembly had failed to provide tangible evidence to support its claims. Here's Edward Kabasa.
Void invoice dated 22nd January 2019.
For 20 minutes, Governor Anne Waiguru stood in silence as the clerk read out all charges leveled against her by the Kirinyaga County Assembly. Waiguru has been put to her defense to prove that Kirinyaga ward representatives erred when they impeached her on 9th June 2020.
The honorable senators, I ask that you look into these matters dispassionately, with an eye solely on evidence. I do not ask that you take my position as truth.
Mutira Ward MCA David Kenywa, who moved the impeachment motion, was the first witness to take to the stand, where he accused the governor of using her influence to award tenders to fictitious companies.
He said the velocity with the VELCITY or VELCTY. Who tendered?
It's actually velocity, VELOCTY.
So a fictitious company was introduced in the midway, correct?
I confirm.
Waiguru, through her legal counsel Andrew Karani, however, took Kenywa to task, arguing that the county assembly had failed to prove beyond reasonable doubt the said allegations.
Do you have any decisions of the review board or of any court of law by any aggrieved party that support your position that tenders were made out of conflict of interest, nepotism, and any criminal enterprise?
Chair, I want to say that we are privy to PPRA report on matters, some of those tender, a report that can be tabled, and the executive can actually confirm that they have such a communique from the Public Procurement Regulatory Authority questioning some of these tenders that are in this motion.
Waiguru is accused of using two companies, namely Velocity and Velocity, to defraud the county government of 50 million shillings. The ward representatives told the Senate committee that Governor Anne Waiguru had claimed interest for fictitious trips abroad, claims refuted by the embattled governor.
In the 2 trips that the governor did not visit, did not travel, her responsibility is to repay the money back to the county.
I'm aware.
And are you aware that those monies were repaid?
Chair, the money may be paid, but the question is when. And how can you accrue personal benefit in terms of foreign travel allowances the first time, the second time, the third time without making the reimbursement, Chair?
Bwana Kinyo, do you understand how the process of imprest works?
I understand very
So
well.
you know that you actually collect money. If you don't use it, you reimburse, you refund it.
Within a stipulated timeline.
Okay, and from where you sit, the governor has never refunded that money.
She has refunded some. Actually, after this motion was tabled, Chair.
The Kirinyaga MCAs have also accused Governor Waiguru of undermining the authority of the county assembly and failing to issue the state of the county address. Waiguru, through her lead counsel Paul Nyambodi, had earlier in the day sought the expungement of some pieces of evidence adduced by the county assembly, arguing that she had already issued responses to outstanding charges leveled against her. The governor will on Wednesday present her evidence before the select committee as she fights to have her impeachment quashed by the Senate. The Senate Select Committee is expected to close the impeachment hearing on Wednesday evening before retreating to write a report which will be tabled before the Senate on Friday.
Now let's still touch base on politics. On the front page of the Standard, united in fear. Do or die. There is palpable anxiety over Kenyatta's succession. If in 1960 there was fear of domination by big tribes, today there is fear that individuals could be rendered irrelevant if they do not get into the right formation. Now, picture there, you have images of different political leaders, including the President Uhuru Kenyatta towards the top left and Honorable Raila Odinga towards the top right. On the side, we have Senator Gideon Moi, we have Honorable Musalia Mudavadi, Honorable Moses Wetangula, Honorable Kalonzo Musyoka, and Honorable William Ruto. Now let's get to open and find out this. Remember, this is comparing the current state of the nation to how it used to be back in the day in 1960. United in fear, top leaders battle for political survival. Now, it has been impossible to slow down the political class in its instructive dramas in the season of the coronavirus pandemic. Its activities evoke memories of previous times, seasoned with the regular landmarks of anxiety about mixing the gravy train and recurrent migrations and marriages of convenience. Allegations of betrayals have also been made, just as in previous seasons. Away from the new caste and its customs, nothing has changed. Now, if in 1960 there was fear of domination in entire communities, in 2020 there is fear that individuals could be rendered irrelevant if they do not get into the right political formations. Picture there, you have an image of the founding father, Mzee Jomo Kenyatta, who was speaking at an opening of constitutional talks at Lancaster House in London in the year 1962. Realignments that have since seen William Ruto sidelined in government have led to new alliances that will be critical to watch in Uhuru's succession. United in fear, top leaders battle for political survival.
And still on matters politics, keeping up with impeachment motions that have been tabled in different floors of the House. Looks like that is not just happening in Kirinyaga County alone. There's a similar one as well in Kitui County. You have the image of the Kitui County boss, that is Charity. Impeachment motion where now ward reps dismissing Ngilu's claim linking Kalonzo to that ouster bid, and Kitui MCAs yesterday refuted claims that Wiper party leader, that is Kalonzo Musyoka, sponsored their motion of impeachment against the county governor boss, that is Charity Ngilu. Their dismissal now comes amidst claims by the county chief that the former VP was behind the campaign to have her removed. Yesterday as well, Majority Leader Peter Kilonzo, who is the mover of that motion, this is to impeach the Kitui County Governor, Charity Ngilu, he said that, and he also warned that Ngilu is invoking Kalonzo's name and it's not right to do that. But it's also important to note that that impeachment motion will require 2/3 of the House to sail through. Will this actually sail through? Will these impeachment motions against the Kitui County Governor sail through? Well, let's see.
So much is happening also in the political scene, and we have a header here on the Daily Nation. Raila allies push him to run in 2022. with President Uhuru Kenyatta said to be looking beyond Jubilee for a successor owing to strained relations with Deputy President William Ruto. ODM leaders supporters see this as a golden opportunity. Now, those in the know say the head of state is seeking to consolidate a team of top leaders to craft a 2022 winning formula and avert a scenario similar to the one witnessed in 2002 when the ruling party was vanquished by the opposition. Just a trip down memory lane in 2002, President Daniel Moi settled on the 41-year-old Kenyatta, leading to a rebellion in Kanu, with Mr. Odinga leading the mass walkout from the party to join former President Kibaki and his team in the National Alliance of Kenya. Now quoted there is Edwin Sifuna. As a holder of the vision for a new Kenya, the country will do well to give him an opportunity to implement this vision. That is in regard to the president's vision. We've been seeing different things here and there, especially in the political scene. Now, also Uhuru asserts authority in bid to hold firm a divided mountain region. Now quoted there is Gatanga MP Ndwati Ngugi. Our support for the president has never been questioned at any time, and we dare all those who think the president is a pushover to think twice and conform when there is time. Is that a threat? Now, talking about threats and seeing some type of purge, depending on which the worldview that you have in regard to politics, now on the bench is Charity Ngilu. And I just mentioned, or rather bring you back to our caricature this morning. Impeachment fever on the Star. Impeachment fever there. We see a seemingly a caricature of embattled Governor Anne Waiguru and Charity Ngilu there, pictured in that insert. Yes, achoo, the impeachment fever. Will Charity Ngilu suffer the same fate as her counterpart, Anne Waiguru of Kirinyaga? Well, indeed, in an advert, the county assembly has given locals up until Friday the 26th of this month to present their views regarding the impeachment motion that has already been presented to the speaker by majority leader in the assembly, that is one Peter Kalonzo. The motion of removal of Governor Ngilu will be tabled on Monday next week for debate. Purity Musel has the intricate details.
The future of Kitui Governor Charity Ngilu hangs in a balance. The county assembly has commenced a process for her removal from office. In an advert, the assembly has given locals in Kitui County until Friday the 26th of this month to present their views on a notice of motion on the removal of the governor by impeachment presented to the speaker by majority leader Peter Kalonzo. In seeking the views, the assembly says it is guided by Article 181, Part 1A to C of the Constitution, which stipulates grounds on which a governor may be removed from office, ranging from abuse of office, crimes under national or international law, violation of the Constitution, among other ills. The motion to have Ngilu axed will be tabled on Monday in the county assembly for debate. The development coming at a time her only female governor colleague, the Kirinyaga Governor Anne Waiguru, is battling her survival after she was impeached by the county assembly. Currently, a committee of parliament is deliberating on the motion that led to the impeachment of Waiguru. Purity Museo, Channel 1 News.
Now, let's head over to the National Assembly, where we had the National Assembly proceedings yesterday that took place. Remember, we had the removal of Honorable Aiden Duale from office of the leader of majority. He gave his exit speech yesterday. Now, hosted National Assembly Majority Leader Aiden Duale admitted that the position earned him friends and even political enemies, but for whom he harbored no grudge. Now, the Garissa Township Member of Parliament used his exit speech to unconditionally ask for everyone and for forgiveness and apologies to everyone he might have offended during his 7-year reign, saying that he simply did his job. And I quote, "My experience taught me that as one pushes the agenda of the majority party, it is also inevitable that one will make new friends and new enemies." End of quote. Duale, I live with no hard feelings.
And images of the new majority National Assembly leader Amos Kimunya. There are image as well of President Uhuru Kenyatta. Change of guard as Kimunya succeeds Duale in House seat, where the Garissa Township MP, that is Aden Duale, who was on Monday removed from the influential position of leader of majority in the National Assembly yesterday, handed the baton to his successor, and that is the Kipipiri MP, Amos Kimunya, and defended his record, saying he was leaving the front bench with his head held high. The highly spirited defender of President Uhuru Kenyatta and his deputy Ruto for the past 7 years. Now, Duale, who was the first occupier of the seat, and this was under the 2010 Constitution, attracted a rare consensus. This is from both sides of the House about farewell speech that was yesterday, was the subject of warm banter from the floor of the House, earning him praise even from members of the opposition, whom he has been engaging in often a vicious fight. But the question still remains: the new successor of the Garissa Town MP, that is the new successor, which is now Amos Kimunya, will he deliver? Will he be up to par?
Now, talking about the purge and the ouster of Aden Duale, indeed how the mighty fall, depending on how the political winds are blowing. Now, talking about loyalty and disloyalty and keeping up with Pomate's politics, is that disloyal Muthama risks expulsion from Wiper Party. Now, he is accused of failing to perform his mandate as the NEC member and co-chairman. Quoted there is that you have been associating yourself with other political parties and politicians who are adversaries of our movement in total disregard of the provisions of the Political Parties Act and the movement rules and regulations. Read a letter signed by the national chairman, Chirau Ali Makwere. Still keeping up with politics and focusing on what is happening, especially in the National Assembly. Just last week, 16 MPs allied to DP Ruto were formally de-whipped from various committees in an ongoing purge by the Jubilee Jubilee at the National Assembly. The 7 days upon which the vacancies were to be filled lapses tomorrow. So far, it has been said that some of the beneficiaries are President Kenyatta's newfound allies, that is KANU, Wiper, CCM, and ODM. However, they have to wait longer to enjoy the corporation trappings after the duration of the reconstitution of the National Assembly committees was extended. Now, last week, the Speaker of the National Assembly, Justin Musturi, formally communicated to the House the de-whipping of 16 members from various committees. In the purge, 4 MPs lost their positions as chairmen of various committees. They include Gladys Boschole, Kimani Ichung'wah, William Cheptumo, as well as, others who are also shown the door were Mandera South MP Ali Aden. Now, yesterday when he was handing over his position, that is Aden Duale, says he has no feelings and says that he is proud of what he has done in his 7-year stint as the majority leader of majority at the National Assembly. Our reporter Ben Chumba compiled this in the following report.
Kilichokuwa na mwanzo hakikosi kuwa na mwisho. Today marks the end of my service.
After serving in the office of the leader of Majority Party for the last 7 years, it was time for Garissa Township Member of Parliament Aden Duale to officially call it a day and hand over the instruments of power to his successor, Kipipiri Member of Parliament Amos Kimunya.
I was not removed for inefficiency or lack of delivery, but simply the circle of the career of politicians. I therefore harbor no ill feelings or grudge.
In an emotional exit speech, Duale said he leaves office as a satisfied man after succeeding in championing the legislative agenda of the Jubilee coalition despite the challenges he faced during his tenure.
My experience as a leader of majority taught me that as one pushes the agenda of the majority party, it is almost inevitable that one will make new friends, new enemies, and opponents, particularly within the party, depending on where their interests are. Interestingly, interests also keep evolving, and hence, one's opponents today might be his or her friends tomorrow.
Duale said he has no ill feelings or grudge against anyone following his removal from office, and instead apologized for any wrongdoing while executing his mandate.
Allow me to unconditionally ask for forgiveness and apologies to anyone in this house and outside who I may have offended in the course of executing my duties. I was simply doing my job. And such is the nature of the job, as Honorable Kimunya will come to appreciate soon.
Honorable Duale, I think you've done your bits, and you've done it well. I don't think anyone would have done better than you, especially as the first leader of a majority in this country, at a time when it was not easy.
In his acceptance speech, National Assembly Majority Leader Amos Kimunya promised to unite the Jubilee Party and continue working with other leaders for the better good of the country.
We continue working together. We bring the unification of this country together, the unity of our party, working together with our colleagues from the minority party for the better good of the Kenyan people.
We'll work with you. I know you have all the experience. I know you have been a leader of the government business in the 10th Parliament, and I know you're equal to the task. We will work together as a parliament, and we see how we can advance, as you said, the agenda of the people of Kenya.
The development coming amid mixed reactions from Garissa Township residents following the removal of their Member of Parliament as Majority Leader.
He will remain the Member of Parliament of Garissa till 2022. Wale ambao wataamua ni sisi. Lakini hiyo kutolewa katika leader of majority ilikuwa ni party position. Lakini wananchi wa Garissa bado sisi ni mbunge yetu.
Ben Chumba, reporting for Channel 1 News.
And we wish Honorable Amos Kimunya the best in his new position as the leader of majority. Now, 12 Kenya School of Law students, Kenya School of Law officials, rather, have been arrested over questionable payments worth 198 million Kenyan shillings to firms associated with the institution's employees. Now, the Director of Public Prosecutions, Nudin Haji, has approved charges against the suspects, who include 6 former KSL employees and 6 proprietors of various companies. They will be charged with various offenses. 12 to be charged over 191 million shillings law school fraud.
Well, still keeping up with the Kenya School of Law and the 12 of them who now face fraud charges, the KSL may have lost more than 198 million, and this is through irregular payments for goods and services not delivered by companies associated with its employees, where 12 of the suspects, including a former deputy director at KSL, they were yesterday arrested after the Office of the Director of Public Prosecution, that is the ODPP, said there is sufficient evidence to charge them for contravening the Anti-Corruption and Economic Crimes Act. Also, the Ethics and the Anti-Corruption Commission launched investigations into the allegations and forwarded that file to the ODPP. And so far, the Office of the DPP has approved the arrest and subsequent charging of at least 30 weeks. So even as we wait, the 12 of them who face the fraud charges, let's see how the Office of the DPP will take this matter.
Now, still on that particular matter, you'd think that the Kenya School of Law would be law-abiding, but it seems it's not so. Now, is that the DPP said the fraud was executed by bank signatories to the KSL accounts who were senior employees of the institution's finance department. Now, the KSL employees would sign for different entities to be paid in the check endorsement register, and the bank staff effected the payments. This this particular investigations is ongoing, and as Kamchamans puts it, is that the DPP is on the right track, it seems so, and indeed the perpetrators are likely to face justice.
A dozen senior employees at the Kenya School of Law are on the spot for allegedly being involved in fraud that has seen the school lose more than 198 million shillings. The Director of Public Prosecution, Nurdin Haji, Tuesday morning ordered for the arrest of the 12 to answer to various charges in connection to fraudulent payment of 198,441,030 shillings by the institution to 6 companies for goods not supplied and services not rendered. The allegations of irregular payment of the said monies shows that Kenya School of Law lost the money to business entities registered in the names of senior employees at the school. The 6 companies, namely Ademwa Enterprises, Alfrank Investments, Densketch Investments, Farmline Company, Frigoya Investments, and Ngoya Cosmetics, are said to have been fraudulently paid as they had not been pre-qualified to supply any goods and consequently did not deliver. According to the DPP, the fraud was perpetrated by the bank signatories to the school accounts who were senior employees at the school and the finance department who would sign for different entities to be paid in the check endorsements register to effect payments. The Ethics and Anti-Corruption Commission has already apprehended 8 suspects in the list of the DPP. They are Professor Maurice Kiwinda Mbondenyi, Amos Kabue Mwangi, Frank Jackson Were, Hudson Amwai Lwigado, Norbert Achiro Gondi, Paul Lovi Adega, Frida Wanda Ngoya, and Kenneth Ochieng. The 4 still at large, namely Ephraim Thukungumi, Francis Mwaki Lwigado, Alfred Murange Lwigado, and Dennis Sam Achiro, have been directed to present themselves at the Integrity Center as soon as possible. The suspects are scheduled to be arraigned in court to take plea on Wednesday, facing offenses of fraudulently making payments from public revenue for goods not supplied, abuse of office, unlawful acquisition of public property, failure to disclose a public interest, and conspiracy to commit an offense of corruption. Kamche Menza for Channel 1 News.
Now, the government is closely monitoring the progress of COVID-19 vaccine, even as the number of cases in the country approach the 5,000 mark. Now, yesterday, the Ministry of Health reported 155 new cases from 4,171 samples, raising the number to 4,952. The Health Chief Administrative Secretary, Mercy Mwagangi, who gave the update yesterday, assured Kenyans of their safety in the ongoing global vaccine trials, even as experts warn against rushing the process. Experts warn that the rush for COVID-19 treatment might backfire like the polio trials in the 1950s. The ministry allays fear over vaccine trials.
Well, and still on matters COVID-19, infections are now on upward trend, and this is as ministry reports 155 more cases in the last 24 hours. And now the Ministry of Health has attributed the relatively low COVID infections in the country to the containment measures that have been put in place. This is to halt its spread, even as it emerged that the vaccine is still far from being found. But the Health CAS, that is Dr. Mwangangi, as well as the acting DG of Health, Patrick Omot, said, whereas there's a positive change of behavior among Kenyans, still a lot needs to be done if the disease is to be defeated. We also have the numbers as usual as of now, standing at 4,952 confirmed cases in the country, and this is after 155 more persons tested positive in the last 24 hours. Since the first case was announced in the country, they have been able to test at least over 140,000 people, leaving the number of recoveries to 1,782 persons, and the number of deaths standing at 128 so far. And also, as usual, we have the map of our country just stipulating the cases and how they have been distributed in different parts of the country, that is in different counties. And still on matters COVID-19, looks like stigmatization is still continuing and on the rise in different parts of the country, where now alarm over rising stress among health workers, and the health workers stationed at COVID-19 isolation wards are reporting now cases of elevated stress. This is brought about by stigma and disruption of family settings as they work to treat infected patients. This was mentioned by the Psychiatric Disability Organization. This is an NGO, and it offers mental health services and advocacy. They noted that most health workers are now being stigmatized for working at the wards, and they would want that that situation to just stop, because, well, the health workers are the ones on the front line, ensuring that people are at least well taken care of.
How about to get a detailed report from our reporter, Purity Museo, who was on ground yesterday to just bring you the latest reports on the COVID-19 pandemic.
Vices such as domestic violence, intimate partner violence, teenage pregnancies, as well as child abuse, either by close relatives or friends, are reportedly on the rise in the country due to the containment measures occasioned by the COVID-19 pandemic. According to the Ministry of Health, children are the key victims of these vices.
And as a Ministry of Health and as government, we affirm and commit that women and children need to be protected at all costs to prevent them against any violence and abuse. Sexual and reproductive health needs, including psychosocial support services, protection from gender-based violence, must be prioritized to ensure that they are available, especially at this time of the pandemic.
Chief Administrative Secretary in the Ministry of Health, Dr. Mercy Mwangangi, called for concerted efforts in protecting children during this time.
And indeed, the ministry considers one pregnancy of a teenager too many, as each girl and boy deserve an equal opportunity to thrive and to be free of health risks and economic burdens emanating from premature parenting.
We need to work together as a whole society to ensure that we don't have any teenage pregnancies. This is obtaining because of the unique situation that we are in. But as parents, as brothers, sisters, of each and every one of us, we need to work together to ensure that the teenagers are protected so that they can be able to achieve their full potential.
Meanwhile, coronavirus cases in the country are inching the 5,000 mark after 155 more people tested positive between Monday and Tuesday, raising the country's caseload to 4,952.
Of all the cases tested, we have 120 of them being male and 35 of them being female. The youngest is a 1-year-old infant, whereas the oldest is 77.
Nairobi County had 104 cases, followed by Busia with 19, Migori 10, Mombasa 9, Uasin Gishu 4, Kiambu 3, Machakos and Nakuru 2 cases each, while Kisumu and Kajiado had 1 case each.
Again, we are delighted that we've discharged 102 patients, bringing our total tally of recoveries to 1,782. And we continue to thank our healthcare workers for this good job and for this achievement.
The death toll, however, rose to 128 after 3 more patients succumbed. At the same time, the CAS cautioned Kenyans traveling from abroad that the arrangement to evacuate them would be stopped if they continue to disregard COVID-19 prevention protocols.
And we would like to clarify that anybody coming back home must have a COVID-free certificate from the country of origin. And before departure, airlines are expected to ensure, and that it is mandatory, that the passengers do fill in a declaration form indicating their preference when it comes to quarantine, and this could either be government quarantine facility or a hotel/private facility in terms of quarantine. And for those who have underlying health conditions, they must ensure that they have their local doctors who have committed in writing to the Ministry of Health to have them self-quarantined at home under their supervision.
The Ministry of Health urges Kenyans to strictly follow guidelines on COVID-19 prevention and not to focus on how or when the vaccine for COVID-19 will be available. Purity Museo, Channel 1 News, Nairobi.
Now, Interior Cabinet Secretary Dr. Fred Matiang'i may soon have access to mobile phone data from an individual suspected of being a spy for a foreign power without a court warrant, as the state switches gear in the fight against cyber espionage. Now, the amendment to the Official Secrets Act seeks to allow the Cabinet Secretary in charge of Interior Security to issue a warrant in his own hand in requiring a person suspected of being a spy of a foreign power to provide them with data including text messages, voice calls, emails, photos, and videos contained in the phone, computer, or tablet. New law gives Matiang'i phone snooping powers.
Of justice is that on officers suspected of killing Yasin Moyo to seek bail. Now, police officer accused of killing a 13-year-old boy in Huruma 2 months ago will seek to be released on bail today. Now, Duncan Diema was arraigned yesterday and charged with the murder of Yasin Moyo. He appeared before Justice Luka Kimaru and pleaded not guilty. Our reporter Ben Troy-Njoy was on ground and filed the following report.
13-year-old Yasin Moyo was playing at the balcony of their home when he met his fate on 31st March this year. An investigation by the Independent Policing Oversight Authority IPOA singled out Police Constable Patrick Ndiema as the one who pulled the trigger on the fateful evening. The High Court had deferred Ndiema's plea taking after his lawyer said he was admitted at the Mbagathi hospital pending the results of a coronavirus test. Ndiema, however, tested negative despite exhibiting coronavirus-like symptoms on June 19. Ndiema is remanded at Capitol Hill Police Station pending his bail application on Wednesday.
We intend to comply with the court orders. Our client is a law-abiding citizen, a career police officer. The offenses he is facing, will not discuss it.
For Channel 1 News, I'm Ben Troy-Njoy.
Kip Kemoy, who is watching GMK, as well as Haron Musafi and Mtumizo Martin Nyongesa from Birunda Kitale. We take a short break. Thank you for having us on board in the first part. But now we take a short break, but in return, we still focus on stories that are making headlines.
Next on.
Ngoja niulize jamaa, nani hapa hivi amepimwa hivi majuzi?
Pale kwa Mwangi, si ni 10 bob?
Sijasema kupimwa weight. Saa hizi kupimwa HIV ni haraka na ni bure.
You are the reason I live.
Gospel singer Johnny Akpanke's songs have lifted spirits and healed wounded hearts. This famous song was birthed during a dark and desperate time in Johnny's life. Growing up, Johnny had a passion for music.
God is real. God is real. Oh, God is real.
Kukuwa na HIV si eti ni mwisho. Wewe uko nayo? Mimi nilishapima.
Afya bora, maisha bora. Jipime.
Miss, I've been asking about Flight 648 from Paris, but no one is saying anything. Is something wrong?
A tragedy changed everything.
It's the plane. They're not coming. What are you talking about? What do you mean they're not coming? I won't leave you.
Why did they have to die, Juana? Tell me why.
A last will is going to transform their lives.
It's Juana Lopez Ortiz.
Me? You have to get that woman out of here. Only heaven knows what kind of trick she used to get your father to leave her the insurance.
And the person she least expected will come to her door.
Ah!
Hey!
Ouch!
Be careful. Slowly, slowly.
Oh, no, no,
slowly.
no, no.
In love with Ramon.
Embakasi Utawala tuko locked. Ungem Utanyahururu Kasuku Massive.
Jeshi ya Nyeri, Coast Maua na Kura kwa locked mbaya.
Kigumo Ward na ambao wote wako ndani ya KBC Channel 1.
Akulaliki Wednesday bila the ref.
Mbotela Outer Idara Kitengela.
Kiambu County 33 Pipeline Meru anawakilisha.
Rongai Maboxer pale go down. Karatina Outer Mlolongo wana enjoy show. Lare Sub County Outer Githurai 45. Lanet Barracks tuko ndani yake. Okongo Outer Carnation Maragwa Seti Nairobi.
Thika wako locked mbaya sana.
Watu wangu wa Nakuru Ungwaro.
Outer Gilgil live kutoka Mazeras Bahati Massive. Embo Thika Massive. Siaya Shikambi Kakamega Bungoma County.
Busia Boda Kisumu City. Malindi yote iko ndani ya the ref.
When I'm in Kenya, I tune in to the rave. Get your mind brave, focus, conscious.
Kenya,
East Africa.
Right.
Keep it locked.
Calling out to Africa.
8 minutes to the top of the hour. Time for our next link. On our traffic, still on Upper Hill Road, which is our focus this morning. Actually, that's the Upper Hill Mbagathi Link Road. And traffic doesn't look so bad. And I can really attribute this to that dual carriage road that has been reconstructed there, the 1.1 kilometer road. I had been showing you images of that on our first link up segment. Let me just show you again those images of the new Upper Hill Mbagathi Link Road. This is how that road looks like. It has taken a bit of time for this reconstruction process to even come to what we are seeing now, but it was important, at least for this reconstruction process to happen, given the fact that there's really quite a number of activities, especially as you head over to Upper Hill area. This is one of those busy areas, not forgetting the fact that there's also residents around this area, or residential places, and also the fact that the number of businesses, wow, I can tell you for a fact the business structures on this specific road or this specific area are quite numerous. And so this is what necessitated also this reconstruction process of this road, at least to ease movement of not just people that are staying along this area or the residential areas, but also to ease movement of those going about their businesses and their activities. Now, if you can remember also, some time back, a number of businesses, in fact, basically, majority of the businesses that are being conducted in this country, the center was the CBD or the Nairobi City Center, but due to congestion in that specific area, it led to relocation of businesses in places such as Upper Hill, in places such as Westlands, and this is why at least you've been seeing a lot of reconstruction happening in those areas, again, just to ease movement of those heading over to their businesses. And when I talk about business structures, this is just an image again of how Upper Hill area looks like. You can just see the kind of business structures or the kind of companies along this area, and unlike what we see on other roads where we normally see traffic in the early morning hour on lanes that are leaving the estates as you come to the city center because of obvious reasons, as people are heading over to their workstation and businesses along Upper Hill Road or Upper Hill area, where we would normally expect to spot traffic is actually on the other side. So it's more like the opposite, because where we would normally expect to spot traffic is on the lane that is now leaving the city center as you head over to Upper Hill. And this is because, just what I said, the number of businesses, the number of companies, the number of activities around Upper Hill area are quite numerous. So it also serves as a good business centers and for business enterprises. And clearly also that is what you are seeing. Now, where you're seeing this orange color, this is actually the lane that is leading you over to Upper Hill area where the business enterprises are. But in as much as, yes, there's a bit of traffic, it is quite manageable, and that is what that color indicates there. On the other lane, the one that is leaving Upper Hill as you come to the city center, heading all the way to Haile Selassie Avenue, as well as other places such as Mbagathi, using the city mortuary roundabout all the way to Ngong Road. There's really no heavy traffic gridlock there, but again, that has just changed actually right now, because traffic has begun building up there as you leave the Upper Hill Road, going all the way to This is where going all the way to Haile Selassie Avenue on the lane that leads you to the city center. That is just where traffic has begun to just slightly build up there, and that has just begun right now, because earlier on it didn't look anything like what we are seeing right now. So that just shows you that traffic has begun to slightly build up right now as you leave the Upper Hill Road heading all the way to the Haile Selassie Avenue roundabout. Now, before we come to traffic again, I had promised to you to show you the images of the non-motorized transport system, because on the earlier images, when you look at this Upper Hill Road, you could barely spot any of that, the non-motorized transport system. Now, when I talk about the NMT, for the benefit of our viewers, this simply means lanes that are designated. So what that means is that when you look at this road, from what you're seeing, you can clearly see that lane that has been specifically designated for vehicles, and this is for both public and private vehicles. But when you talk about the non-motorized transport system, this ultimately means that a road needs to have specifically designated lanes that are not just for vehicles, but also for pedestrians, which is the pedestrian walkways, and also for motorcycles, which is the motorcyclist lanes. But from what you're seeing on these images, you could barely spot any of that, because what you're just seeing is just the roads which has been catered for vehicles. But there's another image still on the same area, which is the Upper Hill Mbagathi interlink. But at least from these images, we can now see designated lanes. We can see the lanes that have been specifically set aside for motorists, as well as the one also set aside for motorcycles. However, unlike the road itself, which at least is already complete and it was already opened up to the public on 6th May. Actually, this road was opened up to the public on that specific date, whereby now people could use this road going about any kind of business activities. So unlike the fact that now the road has already been completed and opened up to the public, when it comes to the NMT, that job hasn't quite yet finished up, but at least it's coming along well, because we can really clearly spot, those designated lanes. There's that lane for pedestrians there, as well as the motorcyclist lane. So clearly just showing us that the Kenyan Urban Roads Authority are keeping up to their words, where they said that any roads that have been earmarked for a reconstruction process or any new roads to be constructed in the country, they will ensure that they set aside lanes that can also be used by pedestrians, which is the pedestrian walkways, as well as lanes that can be used by motorcycles, which is the motorcyclist lanes. Now, the importance of also having such kind of designated lanes, number one, is reducing the traffic congestion. Again, it's also important to note that the reason as to why this reconstruction process is happening is so as to reduce on the traffic congestion and traffic flow around Nairobi and around the city center, because clearly we lose a lot when it comes to just traffic congestion. But in as much as, yes, the number one reason as to why these lanes are also being put up in place, being to reduce on the traffic flow, the number two reasons as to why we also have these lanes is just to have specific set-aside lanes where at least we know we have lanes for vehicles, we have lanes for motorcycles, as well as those for pedestrians, and also that reduces on the rate of accidents, because you can imagine if we just have one specific road whereby everyone is using it, both vehicles, both motorcycles, and then both pedestrians, with no designation, then that also increases the number of death cases. So again, it is also important for me to mention that the other reason as to why we normally have these lanes is, again, also to reduce on the number of death cases, in as much as, yes, they also serve a good purpose in terms of traffic reduction. But as I had mentioned to you that the NMT on this specific road hasn't yet been completed. But as and when that happens, we will also, I'll just be showing you the images of that and see how that is coming along, and also the kind of impact it probably will be having in terms of traffic reduction there. But now coming back to traffic flow, this is still on Upper Hill Mbagathi Link Road, which is our focus this morning. Earlier on, when we were looking at this specific road, especially on that lane that is leaving the city center, as you head over to Upper Hill, going about those business activities, there was a bit of a traffic snarl up there. But then again, look, that has also changed. Remember this specific lane, as you head over to Haile Selassie, there was a bit of orange there, and this is the lane that heads you over to Haile Selassie Avenue, going all the way to the city center. There was a bit of a traffic congestion there. In fact, in as much as, yes, there was a bit of traffic, but it was moving at a pretty fast pace. But look, that has changed completely, because right now there's no traffic at all, moving at a pretty fast pace, and that is what this green color indicates. And also, interestingly, this is on both lanes, so that means the lane that is leading leading you all the way to Haile Selassie Avenue to the city center, as well as the one leaving the CBD, using the avenue or the roundabout coming all the way to Upper Hill. So ideally, this is again a good indicator for people that are leaving Nairobi City CBD, coming all the way to Upper Hill. This is a good time for you to do that. And this is for those that are heading about their businesses, heading about to their workstations, because I had mentioned to you that Upper Hill is one of those busy areas in terms of business enterprises because of the kind of business structures, the kind of companies just that are along that specific area. So again, it's at least good news for those that are living, different areas coming to Upper Hill. It's a good time for you to do that because there's no traffic at all. And even on places where there's a bit of a traffic snarl up, at least it's quite manageable. But clearly as of now, as you leave Haile Selassie, just past the avenue round, the roundabout coming all the way to Upper Hill Road, there's no traffic at all. But let me look at what and how the roundabout is looking like. This is the Haile Selassie Avenue roundabout as it leads you all the way to Upper Hill. I had mentioned to you that for those that are coming from city center, then at least it's a reprieve for them because there's barely any traffic. But in as much as, yes, that is happening like that, but they might have to make do with a little bit of traffic around the roundabout. Remember that Upper Hill begins from that Haile Selassie roundabout going all the way to places such as Kenyatta, Bagathi, using the City Mortuary roundabout, going all the way to Ngong Road as well, to Valley Road. So again, it's also one of those busy roads, not just because of the kind of business structures and even some residential areas there, but also because it connects to a number of areas as well as roads, just like I had mentioned to you earlier. But now coming to the roundabout where the Upper Hill Road begins, and just let's try and look at how that area is looking like. Well, I had said that for those that are going to those areas, it's a reprieve for them, but it looks like now they may just have to make do with a bit of traffic around the roundabout. But it's also important to note that roundabouts lead to a number of roads, and it is no different from this specific one, which is the Haile Selassie Avenue roundabout, because then this roundabout branches off to Upper Hill, which is our focus this morning, comes all the way from the city center as well, also adjoining to Uhuru Highway on both sides. So again, it's one of those busy roundabouts, and also it's one of those busy roundabouts because around the roundabout, also the kind of small-scale business traders just around this specific roundabout are also just quite a number. So again, this is also one of the reasons as to why it is one of those busy roundabout. But as you leave the roundabout coming to Upper Hill, at least the traffic there, it's quite manageable, and that's why there's a bit of orange color there. But as you leave the estates, coming all the way to the Haile Selassie Avenue roundabout, looks like the gridlock there, it's not manageable at all. But again, let me just show you this. There's a bit of difference in color here. We have both orange, red, and the maroon just before you get to the roundabout. Actually, that has changed. In fact, that has changed. So we now have the red and the orange color only. And this is on the lane that is leaving the estates. Now, the estates of coming all the way from Bagathi, coming all the way from Kenyatta, as well as also just coming from Upper Hill as you come to the through the roundabout going to the city center. The gridlock there not moving at all in some specific areas, and in some others moving at a pretty slow pace. In fact, really at a pretty slow pace. But also, it's key to note that around this roundabout, you also have the traffic police normally stationed also up and early, trying to see how best they can control traffic there. But around the roundabout, moving at actually moving really slowly, so you may just have to make do with that. That is around the roundabout, especially as you head over to Upper Hill, which was our focus this morning. We take a very short breather. We'll be back with more.
In the recent trends that have been taking center stage politically, President Uhuru Kenyatta has kicked out politicians from key positions in Parliament. This in both in the National Assembly and in the Senate. What is the game plan? Will there have recent change in leadership taking place at the National Assembly with the removal of the Majority Leader, Honorable Aden Duale? He was replaced by Honorable Amos Kimunya. Will he deliver? Well, we shall be putting into perspective this and much more this morning on The Viewpoint. And joining me, I'm joined by Alex Manyasi, who is to my left, governance and policy expert. Karibu sana, Alex.
Asante sana.
And to my extreme left, I'm joined by retired Major Peter Mwithi. Karibu sana, Major. Yes, and remember, we value your feedback. Even as we continue with this conversation, we shall be joined by Karl Marx Odhiambo, who is a governance and policy expert as we continue with this conversation. But we would like you to be part of it. The hashtag is Good Morning Kenya, at Ram Aguko, at Doreen Arange, at Ray Manyara, at Jane Wamboye, and at KBC Channel 1. Make sure that you send in your feedback and your thoughts. Remember, we are live on Facebook and on our website at www.kbc.co.ke. Now, gentlemen, let's get things going. But before that, disclaimer. Comments shared during this live discussion do not reflect the stand of the Kenya Broadcasting Corporation, and neither do they reflect the stand of Good Morning Kenya, nor me as an individual. Now, Manyasi, coalitions, I'm looking at what Machakos Governor Alfred Mutua, he said this. He had dismissed the ongoing coalitions building in the country. And he said only a radical shift in politics can lift the nation from the current socio-economic crisis. What are your thoughts? Do you agree with that kind of, with that notion? What change do we need?
To a large extent, I agree with Alfred Mutua, even though I have never taken him seriously as a person, because he's a very he's a PR guy, so he plays to the masses.
I saw him in a video speaking in Luo.
Luya, and also.
Luya also?
Yes,
okay.
and so he knows how to play the games of politics with Kenyans, and he knows that if you speak someone's mother tongue, then you're more likely to be endearing yourself to that community. But having said that, I guess the realignments, as we are seeing them, are more political than anything else. Of course, I say they're more political because the engagements, as we see them today, are meant to consolidate support. They're meant to ensure that bills of parliament, for example, are passed without hitches. They're meant to build bridges. They're meant to create a scenario where the political class is kind of realigning, of course, partly because of 2022. But having said that, I guess as a country, there are many things that we still need to deal with. Our politics is very far from being the ideal. And I say very far because the intentions of elections is usually not to put people in office, but to make life better
for
the common person. And therefore, when that does not happen, then of course the politics of the day fail to get to the aspirations of the people who put them in office. And therefore, for me, the most important part of any coalition building or any realignments in politics should end up and must end up with the Kenyan people having a better life, improving the economy, and ensuring that the young people of this country have jobs and have businesses to do. If it doesn't end up in that, then we need to question the very intention of any coalition building. And of course, looking at politicians and looking at what Junaid Mohammed said yesterday, for example, in Parliament, when he was saying, when you see us following Raila like cows, it is a testimony to the fact that it has nothing to do with anything else. But for him, he follows like a cow. I'm just saying what he said because that's what he said.
He said that even right now he will now do it even better
yes,
than he used to do it before.
Yeah, and he was advising and he was talking about Duale and why he needed to have done that. Is because once you do that, in Luo Nyanza, for example, and as long as you're that cow and you have the support of Raila Odinga in Luo Nyanza, then you are assured of re-election. And for most of these politicians, even if you look at the headlines about Raila, the allies pushing him to run for 2022, it's because most of them know and they hope that once they have the endorsement, his endorsement in certain regions, then they automatically go through. It doesn't matter anything else. And so the Kenyan people, and I've said this many times, that the Kenyan voter is under siege. And the Kenyan voter is the biggest saboteur to the success that we hope to see. And I say that because the person who has perpetuated all this is actually the Kenyan voter. We are having people make noise now. We are having people talk about the economy. We are having people talk about COVID-19 and the handling and the likes. But when it comes to 2022, if we will not have a scenario where you will see how Kenyans will change the way they think. And you'll be surprised by the way the game will no longer be about economics. You'll be surprised by how the game will no longer be about what did you do or what did you not do. And I have for many times given reference to reasons why Peter Kenneth, for example, cannot get elected in this country, and yet his track record is known. Raphael Tuju was kicked out of Rarieda, and yet at that time he was the best performing member of parliament just because he disagreed with Raila. We have many instances of politicians who've done pretty well, and yet they have ended up in political oblivion because of not riding in a certain way, which is very unfortunate.
Now in one of our dailies, we have United in Fear. There is a palpable anxiety over Kenyatta's succession. If in 1960 there was fear of domination by big tribes, today there is fear that individuals could be rendered irrelevant if they don't get into the right formation. That is how it is indicated in one of the dailies. And which brings me to you, retired Major. What do you think about these political formations? Are they for the interest of the Wanjiku? And even as you answer that, you can also highlight to us, these formations, is it all about identifying yourself with an ideology or identifying yourself with an individual?
Thank you very much, Ram, for having me once again to discuss these important issues that affect our country. To answer your questions, let me give a very brief synopsis, the history of the relationship between the President Uhuru Kenyatta and our Deputy President. Because their relationships are the ones who are going to determine the destiny of where the politics of 2022 will go. First of all, soon after the election, soon after the end of the rule of Mwai Kibaki, these two gentlemen joined together. And they joined together under a coalition of the Jubilee. And they wanted to have the presidency of this country. And they did very well. We saw them campaigning together, calling one another, William, my friend, and they put a lot of energy. There was synergy in that campaign, which culminated to a very, very close friendship of trustworthy from each other. And then when they got it the first time for 5 years, they again went for the other 5 years, which was very controversial. We saw Raila bringing a lot of issues after that election, going to the judiciary, seeking for there was an annulment of that election, and this did not augur very well. But they pushed on together. We saw them going to ICC, you remember? And they had a common factor, they was friendly. They came back again, and you saw how they went in a motorcade right from JKA through Mudhurwa, in spite of the security risks that many Kenyans complained of their own lives, of their own president and the vice president. They were so together. And Ram, don't forget, they were so together, which resulted in having a white shirt like my friend is wearing here, tie, having speeches on the same. They were together. There was unity. Then where did the rain beat them? Because as we are talking now, Ram, there is a bit of separation between them. You understand?
Yeah.
So now it brings to the point that the Kenyans are knowing that these guys are not together. Their political ideologies have already changed. You understand? Now, the thing is, with the March handshake of Raila, changed all dynamics of the politics in this country. The deputy president did not like the idea of the handshake. And Mr. Raila, being a very, very senior politician, and you remember at the background what had happened. It was so chaotic, the economy was down, there was always demonstration in the city. Things were not well. So they thought maybe for us to bring order, political order in our country, let us shake hands. But it seemed as if this did not augur well with our deputy president.
So that is, in your opinion, you feel that did not augur well?
That did not augur well. And the intention of these two gentlemen, the ODM joining the Jubilee, was to bring peace. And the ultimate end, Ram, in all these confusions of politicians, although we know it is their own self-interest, they do not have very much the heart of Wanjiku. But these two gentlemen sat together. They did not include I think, this is my view, they did not include the vice president. So since that time, there was a big problem, and that's where it resulted the Tanga group out of Jubilee, the Kieleweke, and these two functions brought a lot of friction, and we are seeing the alignment right now, which is very common even in Europe, even in America. Towards the end of any general election in any country, we are bound to see alignment to shape who will take the flag in 2022.
And that's what I want to find out from you. Do you think these alignments are for the interests of the Wanjiku?
Okay, in my own view, if I may read into the mind of our president and Raila, their ambition is to leave a solidarity foundation, a very firm foundation of the country where it is going to be very peaceful, and we do not have a repeat of chaotic general election. After every cycle of general election, we have a lot of chaotic. So they don't want that. I think their only ideologies is to do what? But being politicians, you know, they are politicians who are riding on this vehicle so that they can have their own self-interest. But for this, Ram, just give me a minute. For these two leaders, I think they want to bring unity. They want to leave a legacy of a united Kenya. And you can see from Raila, he's pushing for the BBI so that we can have the constitutional amendment, so that at the end of it all, it is not everybody, some people takes it all and the other. Remember, Ram, in the last election, Raila got over 5 million votes. You understand? And our president was ranging somewhere 6M, isn't it? Now, imagine someone who has a lot of aspiration in leading this country is left behind. He is nowhere after that election. He has 500 people. Where do you think he's going to go? So I think they are going to have a peaceful transition, and you can take it to the bank, Ram. We are going for a referendum, definitely, so that we can change the constitution, so that this post can defeat those who are going to miss the chances in the general election of 2022.
One word.
Yeah.
One word answer in terms of two options: individual or ideology. These alignments, are they based on any of the two, in your opinion, in your viewpoint?
According to the traditions and culture of our Kenyan politics, those are together. The ideologies are there, and you cannot separate the self-interest of any politicians in this country.
Or you cannot separate the individual from the
They are together. But from my own views, Ram, President Uhuru Kenyatta and Raila Odinga, although there are those statements of self-interest, their main big agenda is to live a peaceful country, united country, where everybody is inclusive, including the smallest tribe of this country.
Manyasi, Machakos Governor Alfred Mutua said this, and I quote, "It's quite laughable that a leader can be rewarded and invited to the table not based on his ideology, previous work, or ability, but because of his tribe and tribal bloc." End of quote.
When Alfred Mutua says that, then my question would be, if you were to be asked what ideological stand Alfred Mutua holds, it would be very hard to point out. So,
okay.
Why
do you say so? Why do you say
because
you've not seen, based on his track record?
No, and this is why I say that. It's because, and I'm not dismissing the governor of Machakos for the sake of it, but at independence, if you look at the history and read the history of this country, part of the reason why Raila Odinga and Uhuru Kenyatta differed is because of the ideological differences of the two. One is that the late President Kenyatta stood for capitalism, and everything that he did was capitalistic. If on the other side, Jaramogi Oginga Odinga stood for socialism. So the ideological differences between the two was obvious. If you look at people like Masinda Muliro, for example, and the likes, I think, of Ronald Ngala and others, they wanted Majimbo, which we have today, and they fought for the smaller tribes. So the ideological differences, by that time, it was very clear, and any political formation was on a certain ideological agenda. As it is today, it's very difficult to tell which ideological differences which politicians hold. And that's why it makes it very easy, for example, for different formations to move from different parties and join others and form coalitions. And therefore, it means that either they were on the same page in terms of, if you want to say that they had any ideological arrangement or thinking, because if they didn't have, then it may not be possible, for example, to say that we want to form a coalition with another party. And if there are differences ideologically, then we are also trying to say that unless those ideologies are the same, it means those formations will never hold.
Let's take a look at how, back in 1960, when KANU was formed, we had formations, individuals forming KANU from different regions, some from Rift Valley, Western Kenya, and coast that had rejected positions given to them in KANU at the Kiambu meeting, where we had the Kokorel, where we had it was what formed the symbol of KANU. But looking at how KANU formed back in 1960, the formation that was there, the idea, the agenda that was there in forming KANU in 1960, is it the same that can be copy-pasted with the ideas and agenda that is there currently in our current political party formations?
No, it's not. It's not because, and I say that because as it is today, the ideals and the aspirations of the people who are forming those formations was different from what it is today. And the major departure between then and now is that you will find that most of the founding politicians then had certain ideas about what they wanted to see. And because that did not happen, the politicians who have come in now have completely disregarded what the intentions were then. If you went to Western Kenya, for example, what Masinda Muliro believed in may not necessarily be what Moses Wetangula believes in, and Amani, ANC, Musalia Mudavadi believes in. And so, unless we trace back, and that's why I have always insisted, even though some people have dismissed me, I've always insisted that we need about 3 political parties in Kenya. And these 3 political parties should not just be formations, but should be ideologically so different, such that if I want to join a certain political party, or I want to vote for a certain political party, then I want to vote for that party because I know that their intention and their ideal and their ideology is that they want devolution to be strengthened. For example, today, the Right Honorable Raila Odinga is together with the Honorable Uhuru Kenyatta. The two of them were in opposing directions when we voted for this constitution. And therefore, the basic question to ask is, ideologically, are these two individuals thinking together? Your guess as good as mine. So if we think about the direction we want to take as a country, and the reason why I keep insisting that political parties should be formations of certain ideological ideas that we can bank on, so that if I want to wake up in the morning and go and vote, I should not be voting for individuals, but I should be voting for that political party, because I know that when they get into power, the agenda they're going to have and they're going to advance is what I stand for.
When you look retired Major, when you look at the political party formations that we have currently, we are aware that from there are leaders who rejected KANU and went ahead and formed KADU. Now, looking at the current state of the nation, with the current formation of political parties, is it the same? Do we still have the same mantra, the same ideologies of forming political parties now, as it were back in 1960s, in the 1960s?
Aram, let me make it very clear to our viewers that these people called politicians, the main agenda, most of them, very few, most of them, their main agenda is self-interest. Wanjiku is across the bridge, very far away in the desert, somewhere there. They are not with it. And I would like to support your idea that you brought ideologies. Remember, during the Pan-Africanism, when most of the countries in Africa were struggling to remove the yokes of colonialism in Africa, there was what we call statesmen. The statements were there. The statements of during that time, during Pan-Africanism, during the struggle from the colonialists, were not very much interested in themselves. They were interested in ideologies, issues. How do we govern our young nations after independence? You remember? We have statesmen like Mwalimu Julius Nyerere, how he brought socialism in Tanzania. He almost died poor, if you'll agree. We have statesmen like Kenyatta. He was a statesman. Until that time, touch a point about my brother here, who has said that they parted because of ideology. Remember, during 1956 election, when we had the first election in this country, Odinga was asked by the colonial government to form a government. But
Oginga?
I'm not talking of Raila, his father.
His father, Oginga Odinga.
Yeah.
Yes.
You know, they had what we call statesmanship in their hearts, rather than the behavior we are seeing of our politicians today. And he said this, and I may quote, he said, I cannot have the leadership of this country when Kenyatta is in Kapenguri. You understand?
Yeah.
I'm talking about statesmen. And I'm bringing an issue here that when I look at the behavior of our politicians today, although they have ideologies, what they are doing, they are carrying away those ideologies, the party mandates, the party slogans, the party opinions under the carpet. They bring their own interests. What we are seeing today is a coalition for the interests. But however, there are very few politicians that we have who still have the additions, the mix-up of the statesmanship. They can even die for this country. But I can assure you, Ram, without contradiction, if all factors are held constant, these politicians should drive this country's leadership through issues and ideologies. But what we are seeing is very funny. They are driving this country towards their own self-interests.
And
am I clear?
Yes, you are, and your viewpoint has been really clarified there. I mentioned earlier that Karl Marx Odhiambo will be joining us. So he is with us. Karl Marx, karibu sana.
Thank you so much, Ram.
You have been observing and listening to what your fellow panelists have been saying in regards to the political party formations that we have. Give us your opening remarks. Political parties formation that we have currently. The question is ideology or individual oriented? Which is the way?
Thank you so much, Ram, and viewers. I agree with my fellow pundits that the political parties formation, in fact, I say across Africa, except for the few of ANC, South Africa, and the Ghana, I think the rest of the parties, they are all vested in individual interests. So that if I, Karl Marx, I would love to get part of what I think is aligned to my my interest, then we'll coalesce, or maybe we come with some alliances with Bunyasi and also Mbidi, then we agree, we say, you know what, we are now giving a picture of the nation, or we paint a picture of, you know, everybody's represented. But, you know, ideology is not simplistic as we put it. It's something that cuts across. It's something that needs to be felt with somebody in Marsabit, in Migori, in Lamu, you go all the way to Trans Nzoia, or maybe Bungoma, because by the way, if you talk about an ideology of a party, then it's something that resonates with the citizens, it resonates with the economy, it resonates with the social aspect, it resonates, in all angles you look at it, it's something that needs to make all of us believe that there is something that we are fighting for.
Okay.
But if you look at it this way, where we are as a country today, I don't see so much of the ideology, because if really we have the manifestos read for you today, you will be you will be surprised to hear that what Jubilee has written is exactly what maybe the ODM or maybe ANC will be talking about. But you know, when they come together, or maybe when they are in different camps, they will speak in different languages, as if they will be read as THE, and you know, you don't pronounce it as the, you know. So basically it depends on which side of the political divide you are, then you will call it ideological, but I don't see that actually as the real picture of what we are.
Now, Governor Mutua said this. Why are you laughing, Alex? And I quote,
okay.
In those discussions, they don't ask you what skills and ideas you are bringing to the table, but what numbers you are coming with. End of quote.
Of course. However, I think even beyond numbers, my understanding is that the skills here, if it means book skills, that's a different discussion. But skills in the sense of a politician like Raila Odinga, for example. I like giving reference to Raila because, he's been in politics for so long, and he has like 9 lives. So if it's about political skills, then the political skills translate into numbers.
Can an individual look at the formation of these parties based on just the numbers? We are saying that this man has the numbers, he has the people, so please join us.
Of course.
Without considering the skill.
Of course.
As the governor is saying.
The skill, in this sense, the skill, you cannot have numbers without skills. And the skills could even be political. You don't have to have book skills. So in that sense, it's not possible to have no skills and have numbers. In the Kenyan context, in the African context, even the biggest of idiots, if you can allow me to use that word, if that person has the numbers, then it means that kind of person has some skill set which you don't have. That's why you don't have the numbers.
That's why
so
he
if
has
Alfred,
the numbers.
Yeah, that's why he has the numbers. So you cannot say that it's not possible to bring, it's possible to bring skills without numbers. Where do you get numbers if you have no skills to bring numbers?
And it's not possible for you to bring numbers without skills?
No, you must at least have some political skills. That's why I tell you I disagree with Alfred many times.
Well, I'm looking at last week we had Wiper leader Kalonzo Musyoka and Chama cha Mashinani leader Isaac Ruto. They became the latest politicians to formally sign a cooperation agreement with Jubilee. Now, KANU, remember, previously KANU was also in agreement with Jubilee under this Baringo Senator Gideon Moi. They were the first to sign this in agreement with Jubilee. Now, could these alliances, let me come to you, Karl Marx, could these alliances be building blocks towards gaining the necessary numbers that we are talking about, the necessary numbers and future political wins in the nation?
Ram, first of all, I think I will take it from the Wiper leader first of all. I think from where I sit, that was a wrong move, and I don't think in his right way of thinking, or maybe coming up with some political muscles or strength, or maybe you need to control a certain populace, you cannot get to sign what we call, I think they call it cooperation.
Yes.
Now, you know, you can't cooperate with NASA, or maybe you have a coalition with NASA, you go cooperate with Jubilee, while you want this to be actually in black and white. And in essence, you will ask yourself, where was the party leader for Jubilee during the time of this cooperation? Oh. Where was the deputy party leader of Jubilee during this cooperation? So does it mean that the Wiper was signing an agreement or maybe a cooperation with some fellas who felt like, you know, we want to send a message? But having said that, I also think that it's a wrong move at a wrong time, because it doesn't make great impact when it comes to maybe Lower Eastern vote block, because somebody will ask that now, once you've joined, what else do you bring, or maybe what else are we going to benefit? Because at the end of the day, cooperation means that there are some benefits that needs to get to trickle back to the membership of the Wiper. But for Isaac Ruto, it's a good move. The reasons being, there is already jitters or cracks within Jubilee as a party. And so the Rift Valley would love to feel that, you know, as much as part of it is being pinched, punched, or maybe being blown, there need to be a replacement. And so because there was a vacuum, they feel completely, it's a political good scheme that, you know, we have to appease these guys that part of what we are fighting, it's part of what we are also replacing. So either way, it's part of you that is coming in. So for Isaac Ruto, that's a plus. For Wiper Kalonzo, that's a big negative and zero.
So why would you say for Isaac Ruto is a plus? Yes, you've highlighted those issues.
Yes.
But I'm trying to look at what Wiper leader Kalonzo Musyoka said. And he was talking about, you know, that in time you need to align yourself with the right people. You need to have cooperation agreement to take the country forward. He was alluding to the fact that we are looking at the interests of the nation to take this nation forward. That is still not a reason, in your own opinion, for him to join CCM and come together and have a cooperation agreement with Jubilee?
Basically, Ram, you have to look at it this way.
Yes.
You know, politics is actually, by the way, power is not discussed the way we are discussing it. Power is not actually discussed in crowds or maybe some marketplaces or maybe huge places. Power is actually transferred in a very serene, very quiet and a peaceful environment whereby everybody will never know exactly what is going on. So when you come out to tell people that you are going to sign a cooperation, and the cooperation, you sign it at a time whereby I think you cannot reap much about with it. But not only that, I have a feeling that being a political, being a party leader who also controls a number of members of members of parliament and maybe some senators, you cannot just get into such given corporations while you know very well that by this time I need to build a brand within myself. Let me get people to understand why we are on this side, or maybe what we are doing different, so that when you are going to negotiate with the people, you don't negotiate in terms of I want to support you, but in terms of we want to partner. So that somebody feels that there is a self of an engagement here whereby you bring something, I bring something. But on this, I think there was nothing much. But Isaac Ruto, actually, he gained a lot.
And I wonder, what does Wiper leader have to lose in this cooperation agreement? Retired Major.
Ram, let me quote one of my best political analysts in this country, Professor Manyara. I think you have heard him talk many times. And I'll also repeat what he says about politics is about numbers. What you bring on the table. What you bring on the table is important. Ideologies and other issues about Wanjikus comes later. I think anybody who joins a Jubilee to fatten the coalition, he has an interest. He has an interest because of his other leaders of that party. They'll get something in that cake. You understand? And then he'll amass a lot of numbers. I think numbers matter a lot in any coalition. And Ram, as we gear up to 20 22, we shall see a lot of these coalitions, people coming in. And I'll very briefly tend to disagree with my friend about Kalonzo losing focus on joining Jubilee. Remember, Kalonzo is a very, very senior politician in this country. And in fact, if I'm not campaigning for him, but if you zoom a camera on him to try and see if he has any dents on corruption, on his leadership, on the loyalty to the president, I think he stands very tall. And I'm sure he'll join there and have a benefit towards the end of 2022.
So you're saying for him to join, to have a cooperation agreement with Jubilee,
anybody
was
who joins,
a good move from him.
Who joins and who is allowed to join Jubilee, he will have a part of the cake. He's not going to be a loser. Because what he brings on the table is a number. And when they are going to share this national cake, after the general election of 2022, he'll have to get something for his community, because our politics is very, very inclined to our communities. So he's going to have it. Anybody, and I wonder, Ram, the question you should ask here, what is it that our president and the ODM leader Raila wants to achieve? And I've already said here, if I read their minds, one is to leave a legacy of a united country, void of corruption, where even Ram today, he will get any post in this country in spite of where he comes from this country. I think they want to have that legacy, and that legacy is going to be pinned on the BBI, which is going to bring the results of constitutional amendment. So they have these few posts there, so that when the election is over, nobody's going to cry and bring a lot of chaos. So to answer the weight of your question is that anybody, to my own views, that is going to join the Jubilee, then is going to benefit. Kalonzo is not going to lose. Now we are seeing Mudavadi struggling with his ANC to join there. Maybe he wants to have better terms.
To join where?
To join the Jubilee.
He has not said he's going to.
He has not said it, but he's also struggling. You know, this is politics. He's also struggling. There are some things going behind there. If he doesn't, then he'd automatically be on the opposition. And we need opposition anyway. And of course, if he's in the opposition, with the changes of referendum, I don't know how it will be, then the opposition will have a stake in the country.
But ODM is opposition.
It's opposition, but now, with the cooperation with the Jubilee, I don't think whether it can muscle the Wanjiku's ideas at the moment. But let's wait and see it later.
Your view of this, your take?
The current political formations, of course, if you ask me, they are short term. Kalonzo has been quoted saying that, of course, he's been in the cold for long. It's long since he was in office, and therefore it's expected. During his father's funeral, he made certain statements telling the president of this country with regards to the fact that he was going to support him without question. Of course, because of the way our formations are, when you're outside of government, and I'm sure that's also the same inclination that Raila Odinga will have, when you're outside of government, unless you have very deep pockets, it's very difficult to survive politically. And part of the reason why you have MPs and other people flocking towards certain individuals and certain parties is because they're gaining out of it politically and economically. If that wasn't the case, and then it would be very hard for someone to keep politicians. But having said that, I guess part of what gives Kalonzo Musyoka a plus, more than Musalia Mudavadi, for example, is because Kalonzo Musyoka has gotten hold of the Kamba community. And you remember, even when Senator Mudama then disagreed with Kalonzo Musyoka, he decided not to run for the Senate post because I think he sensed that he could have easily been embarrassed at the end of the day by not clinching the seat. So when you have your community in your hand, And anytime there have been dissenting voices in Ukambani, they have always cooled down somehow in favor of Kalonzo Musyoka. So because of that, of course, someone like that being incorporated into the Jubilee side becomes easier, because you know that if he has 10 MPs, then you have 10 supporters in Parliament.
If you look at what Karl Marx had mentioned earlier, the agreement that is there between Wiper Democratic Party, Chama cha Mashinani with Jubilee Party, is it the best move for Wiper Party?
For the party, and I'll say what I've said again in terms of the negotiations and the economics part.
Yes, yes.
When you are close to power and you are therefore in power and you have access to the economics, then chances are that you will remain fluid up to the general election. And then that also means that you'll have a head start in terms of your ability to finance your election.
Because you'll be close to the heat.
Exactly. But when you are in the cold, you need to have the resources. Like Musalia Mudavadi today needs to have his own resources to make sure that he remains relevant as an opposition leader, and to remain relevant in the sense that he needs to critique the government objectively to a point where Kenyans can see an alternative government in him.
Now,
if that doesn't happen, then him not being in government does not even help.
Let's talk about a few issues that were rising. Jubilee Asili. Karl Marx, and I'm coming to you. In regards let me just take us back.
Yes.
Since 1992, those who have left their own parties have also retained the trademark of the mother party. Let's look at in August 1992. We had the main opposition party, which was the Forum for the Restoration for Democracy, that is FORD, which was founded by Mzee Jaramogi Odinga and Kenneth Matiba. Now, FORD broke into two parties, and we had the formation of FORD Kenya and FORD Asili. Right now I'm looking at Jubilee Party Kenya, Jubilee Asili. Is this a repeat of history, Karl Marx? And do you see us having a political party known as FORD Asili, and Jubilee Asili?
First of all, I've been actually trying to wonder how the timing of the Jubilee Asili Center and the schemes behind having the Jubilee Asili Center. I think it's a way of the deputy president to reorganize himself, towards 2022. But again, it comes with a lot of questions, because before you talk of Jubilee Asili, you'll have to know that if you go through the Political Parties Act, okay, first of all, that name will not go through. And the symbol is more or less the same. That will not even make them to register that. So whoever came up with that idea, I think it's misguided. And it's ill-timed, because that will not make them to go far.
It won't hold water. It won't stand the test of time.
Precisely.
Or it will pull through. Which is which?
I don't think there will be anything called Jubilee Asili Party. Take it from me. Because if you go through the Political Parties Act with the same name, same symbol, or maybe more or less similar symbols, I think they will not. But maybe they might be having an idea of having other parties, so they concentrate people on the Jubilee Asili like a movement, while they're concentrating their forces towards a given political party that they have maybe registered through proxies and all that stuff. But again, this might not give him much strength towards getting out of Jubilee with a huge chunk. Because I think there's one mistake that the deputy president is making. Each and every time there is this Oster process that needs to take place within the Jubilee quarters, is part and parcel. Because the other time he was actually present in State House, okay? And when Washeli and whatever, they were ousted, he was there. History won't actually get to say that, you just sat and you didn't talk. Or you are part of those people who are present during the process of ostering these guys. Number two, it is not in any way possible that you want to convince somebody, or maybe Langat, or maybe Chepkoech, maybe in Kericho, that, you know, I went to KICC, I didn't love the process of removing maybe Aden Duale, but I was there, I did nothing, okay, and left, and more or less you could see the body language, like the president is actually informing him, you know, I'll give you a call. Now, the problem with that is this. You are confusing your supporters. You are making them to believe that either you are okay with everything that is going on, but you don't want to tell them exactly your next move, or you've been punctured completely and you don't have any other option but now to abide and lie low. So these two scenarios are going to be very difficult for him, because like the other time, you could hear some of his support, I mean, some of, I call them, the members of parliament who are actually aligned to him, they actually threatened not to attend the PG, that is for the KICC, right? But you could see only 5 members, jocosely, ironically, only 5 members actually missed that PG. Now, the question is, if we talk of registering a party, and if you look at it in terms of numbers, you can only, out of almost 190, you can only get 5 to align to you. Or maybe you cannot actually stage a walkout over this meeting when you are aggrieved. Then you're telling Kenyans that even the Jubilee Assembly might not hold for long, because it doesn't make sense to me for now that they have actually they have come up with a parallel center, but at the same time they still call themselves to be the Jubilee. So that will really give them a lot of problems moving forward.
Ram, I don't know whether to differ with my Karl Marx, or this Karl Marx is that Karl Marx you read in the university. I don't know. But to answer that question is, let us look at the recent statements of our president during the PG meeting of the members of the Jubilee. He stated categorically that he's doing all these reshuffles because these fellows who are regarded as dissidents, they are not loyal. It anchors on the word loyalty. Ram, today, if you are a commander, let me give this example because I come from the ministry. Those who are behind you, if they don't support you to achieve your agendas of the big 4 agendas and all that, you are there to echo the sentiments of the ruling party, which is Jubilee. You go against that, you are perceived to be a dissident. So what the president was doing is actually sweeping those that he's not ready to work with. And he has stated many times that now that I have relieved your duties of the chairman of these committees, which you are doing on behalf of the party, then you can go now and do anything else. That saying, to my understanding is that Jubilee, whether it is going to be named Asili or whatever name it's going to have, because it will have coalitions of other members like KANU, like Wiper, it is going to have a different, but it will remain the same. What is happening here and why the president is doing all these things, he just looked at these people who he has already taken away. They were not loyal. It was a question of loyalty. And Ram, let me tell you, why these people were removed from the party is because they thought 2 years away from the 2022 general election, President Kenyatta is irrelevant. But they forgot that this is the president for the period of 2 years, which is the preparation for 2022 general election. They were writing him off, and they were maybe, to my own views, they were looking at our deputy president, knowing that this guy is going to be the president. And that answers the question, Karl Marx, if you'll agree with me, that our politicians, their main objective is self-interest. If deputy president becomes the president, what will I gain? So they were supporting him, instead of going to the last minute of being loyal to the party leader, who is Uhuru Muigai Kenyatta.
Jubilee
but
party.
Have I made it clear, Ram?
Your point has been heard.
Thank you.
Yes,
Ram, one of the things that I have seen, and in response to Jubilee Asili, I have spoken to some of the politicians who are in Tangatanga. And before this purge actually started happening, And some of them don't talk to me anymore because I told them, you're speaking too soon, you're speaking too loud. That voice that you're having should not be coming from you. That's what I told one of them. And she doesn't talk to me anymore because it came to pass. And I was giving advice at that time, and I said, the Deputy President of the Republic of Kenya, unless he chooses to leave, unlike before, he cannot be fired. And therefore, he's going to be the Deputy President of the Republic of Kenya up to 2022. And therefore, in terms of politics, he's a front runner. They did not have to make it look like he needed his voice to be amplified on top of the world for him to be a front runner. He didn't have to. Secondly, at that time, I felt like when I was talking to those politicians, I felt like they were pushing the president and the deputy president, they were putting a wedge between the two. That was my feeling then. And you have seen what has happened today. They have literally put a wedge between the deputy and the president. That's why when Karl Marx talks about, for example, the DP attending meetings that the president is attending, it's because he's in the presidency. And constitutionally, they cannot be removed from each other. Now, whether the deputy serves at the pleasure of the president is different from the previous dispensation where the deputy was not actually a deputy but a vice president, in the sense that President Moi or Kenyatta or anyone else will have woken up and said, have replaced my vice president. But not anymore. That cannot happen. And therefore, for the Asili or not,
Jubilee Asili,
sorry. Jubilee Asili or not, the current DP will remain being DP, like I said, unless he chooses to leave. However, Jubilee Asili, again, if you ask me, again is a frustration that is being shown out there that look, it's being called Asili because these were the ideals that we had in the initial time, but this has since been negated. However, when you go and form a parallel system, if it's going to be registered, who is going to be the party leader? Who is going to be the leader of that party? Those are the questions that need to be asked. If someone will make a mistake of putting the DP, for example, the party leader of Jubilee Asili, then that will create constitutional questions about his position in government.
Now, let me just get the prediction from the panelists, because there are so many, well, previously on this show, we've made so many predictions that have actually come to pass, while others have not come to pass. What is your prediction, each one of you? Do you see the formation of a political party known as Jubilee Asili? Manyas.
To be associated with the DP in the next 1.5 years, no.
No. Retired Major, do you see the formation of a political party known as Jubilee Asili?
You see, Asili or not Asili, the politicians are very funny. All these politicians were once in Kanu, they were once in Kadu, they were once everywhere.
But do you see the formation of
well, the formation is going to be there, but time will tell. Let us see what that name will be, the symbol according to Karl Marx said, the flag and what have you. After consolidating all these other parties who want to join Jubilee, I think Ram, they are going to sit down and say what this party will be. And Ram, to wrap up this, because sometimes you have a tendency of not giving us the last minute to give a word. The most important thing about these parties, whether it's a coalition, whether it's a what, all what Kenyans need is peace at the end of 22 general election, unlike the other general elections. So when we gear towards the end of our discussion, these panelists will be very important to this country to tell them about issues of peace. We don't care what they're going to do. And remember, Ram, any government which is propelled by any party is very important in determining what the shape of the political destiny of the country.
Let me come
because
to
it has the resources, it has the power, it has the muscle. So the Jubilee Asili you are talking about, Ram, will always spearhead of whatever the name it will be and this agenda.
Formation of Jubilee Asili political party. Do you see it forthcoming?
Ram, in this show, go and check your clips 2018, I think October. I predicted that Jubilee will crack, and it did happen. I'd said here that the House business leadership will be changed. It happened. I predicted here that Gideon Moi will come to the limelight and it will shock people how he will be doing his stuff. It happened. I talked about Isaac Ruto and William Kabugo coming out more than just what you see about with them. It's going on.
Seeing a new
and I said here,
coming up.
and I said in this show, and get back and check your clips, I said here that Raila Odinga is going nowhere, and whatever they are crafting is going to be another juggernaut that will crush almost all the competitors, him, Uhuru, and the team. And remember, I also told you that the referendum will peak, and it will be another thing altogether. Now back to Jubilee Asili and the other Jubilee. One thing you can take to the bank, there will be no party called Jubilee Asili. But the deputy president will register another party, okay, that he will use to actually, he will use as a vehicle for him to run for 2022. But again, if we will continue to make these simple mistakes of like you blow cold or hot when you are actually being suffocated in a room, then he might even end up not even controlling part of that party that he believes he might be going for.
Now let's touch on one more issue. The Kitui governor, Charity Ngilu, has been accused of violating the constitution and provisions of the County Government Act, abuse of office, and failure to account for public funds. Yesterday, a notice of motion to impeach Governor Ngilu was served to the clerk of the County Assembly, waiting, tabling, and debate next week on Wednesday. What are your thoughts in regards to the impeachment now? Because we have been looking at Governor Anne Waiguru, and as a matter of fact, KBC will be covering the proceedings of Governor Anne Waiguru in a bit. Remember, it is now 9 o'clock. Once we get the link, we will be heading over to a location to get a view of the proceedings of Governor Anne Waiguru. But we're talking about Governor Charity Ngilu. What are your thoughts in regards to this?
Yeah, I wish the MCAs of Kitui were more cleverer and introduced this motion much later. Because now what we're going to see is that even the Senate decision, if they're going to make that decision at the time when Ngilu, for example, will have been impeached, then the decisions will start changing in terms of whether that is the route that the Senate should be taking. And we say that because when you escalate, number one, these are all women. Yes. And therefore, if you're going to impeach 2 women out of 3, are they 3? Yeah, actually, out of 3.
We had 3. The
yes, now there are 2.
Now there are 2.
Yes, so if you're going to impeach the only 2 sitting governors, then that spells disaster for the country in terms of the optics. But secondly, and that's why I'm saying the MCAs of Kitui should have been brighter and halted this for some time.
It's a wrong timing.
It's a wrong timing. It's a wrong timing in terms of the coincidence of bringing 2 women, 2 only sitting women as governors. It's just wrong. It looks wrong. But having said that, I guess it also points to the issue about the chauvinism in our country and all over the place. In the sense that, and I have said this before, for example, Waiguru's way of doing things, and you have seen in the papers about she's being accused of being high-handed and being being a dictator and being rude. I had said those things. And the politics of the county is very local politics. So these leaders need to understand, especially the leaders that are coming from a national platform, need to understand that when you're dealing with local politics, it's very different. So if this rudeness is being anchored on part of the reason why it has ended up, I'm deliberately saying part of the reason why it has ended up in the Senate, then you risk a scenario where people are being taken out of office, first because they were rude, and then 2 because they were corrupt. And so we will then lose the momentum in terms of thinking about being beyond reproach in terms of holding public office. Because the law is clear about even the chapter 6, the ideals of chapter 6, the spirit and the letter of chapter 6 was such that when you hold a public office, then you're supposed to be beyond reproach. And therefore, public funds, this country, even though in the region, Kenya is the third biggest economy on this continent. But however, if you think about the basic problems that a Kenyan goes through, then you start wondering whether we should be losing resources the way we lose them. It saddens me that the monies that we are sending to the counties, for example, when you have almost 70% going to recurrent expenditure, and the 30% that is supposed to be for development expenditure, almost another 70% of the 30% is actually lost in the process.
Now, you've highlighted quite a lot of issues there. Timing, expenditure. You've talked about, the gender issue. Let me come to you, Karl Marx. Does gender have a role to play in this, and is this just a typical example of wrong timing?
Ram, thank you once again. First of all, forget about this thing called gender.
Why?
Because there is nowhere that you talk of a gender to be a disability. If you're talking about integrity matters, let us focus all our forces, all our minds, let us put it, on integrity. This thing of each and every time you want to talk of any office holder of a female character to become a gender thing, I think we are really missing the point. There is nowhere written in the Constitution that if we have some misappropriation or mismanagement or some corruption related cases somewhere, then we bring the card of a gender. I think that one now we need to forget as a country. But then, getting back to the Ngilu Waiguru thing, first of all, to me, I believe we don't actually do a lot of civic education to our members of county assembly. They are idlers. They don't exactly understand why they are in those county assemblies.
Why do you say that?
Reasons why I say that. I'm going to give you the 4 roles, just only 4 roles of the members of county assembly. Number 1, they vet and approve nominee for appointment in the county assembly. Number 2, they will approve the budget and the expenditure. If you read Article 207 of the Constitution, that is their work. These are the people who are supposed to be approving allocation and expenditure. Now, in line with that, you can even get back to read again the Article 201, 203, okay? This will enable them, I think this should also enable them to now understand how they can actually get to know the principles of public finances, the equitable shares, and other financial related laws. These are the people who are actually approving the county development plan. Now, there are other 4. Let me just now give you, there are 4 types of county development plan in the County Government Act. Number 1, we talk of County Integrated Development Plan. That is a 5-year plan. Now, we talk of County Sectoral Plan. This is actually a 10-year plan. We talk of a county spatial plan. That is clean 10 years plan. And we talk of urban, cities and urban area plan. Now, where do we get our members of parliament to come up with other given roles of impeaching a governor, okay, attending, we call them devolution conferences, running around with slay queens or maybe slay kings to be their part of other roles that they have decided to get to be part of what today we can discuss? Because if you ask yourself, with all those roles or with all those plans, do you still expect a member of county assembly to forget that we are the people who are actually approving a budget and the expenditure? We are the people who are actually oversighting these people to know what we've allocated, have they been used well? Now, if we get to a point whereby our members, members of county assembly are going to be like in peer pressure whereby if we hear the county assembly of, let's say, Kirinyaga, they have impeached their governor, we are running to also confirm to them that, you know, we are going to do the same thing in Kitui and all that. I think that is also very wrong with our county members of assembly. They need to come back and understand that we gave them a role of small countries down there so that they could do development for the people who never thought that there is any resource that can reach them. These are the people who can need, get me, these are the people who need to get the views and the opinion of their people that they can actually inject within the county government.
Now in George, you're saying that the county assembly of Kitui does not understand its roles in your viewpoint.
It cuts across. So one thing I can tell you for free, Ram, this thing is going nowhere. Do you know why? One, you have to look into the political current situation as we speak. You know how politics plays. Let me tell you, you might have these county government bosses, we call them governors, having some issues within the county level, okay? Don't make a mistake of actually making that to look like a national thing. Immediately, Waiguru was removed from Kirinyaga, and they were trying to play this as a national politics. That is when they lost it. That is when they lost it.
Let me come
and
to
so, no, let me finalize on this.
I've given you enough time.
No, you talked about women being targeted, okay? And I wanted to tell you that these are not the only people, these are not only the governors who have been impeached in this country. Wambora is even the principal of those governors who have been impeached. Mwangi wa Iria, just get me, Mwangi wa Iria is here. Mutua, Kivuta Kibwana, Samboja, you can name them, Kericho, Sepkwon. Why are we not talking about them that immediately you touch on a woman now, everything turns to be another thing?
Retired Major?
I think, Ram, for me to forget, you know, I'm very ancient in this panelist. I'm the oldest here. And let me say something for my brother here, Karl Marx, before I forget. It seems as if Karl Marx is a fortune teller. Fortune teller in the sense that what he has predicted over the last time in your discussions here has come to pass. So I would also like him, before the discussion, to tell us who he thinks on behalf of Kenyans will be the next president of 2022. Since he is qualified to be a very good fortune teller. Aside that, let's go to your question.
I don't know if I give you time to respond to that.
Let me go to your question. Huh?
Yes, yes.
With the performance of the county assembly members, the presidency was set by Embu County, where they tried to impeach Wambora, who had so many acts, and he went through with it. And then they forgot, all the members of the county assemblies, 47, they forgot. And then they were awakened from the slumber by the Kiambu county assembly members by impeaching one governor, former governor, Waititu. Now, the issue here is that I'll agree with Karl Marx. The county assembly members did not know the powers they have under our new constitution, especially the devolution. And those powers have already very, very vividly been highlighted by my friend here, Karl Marx. They did not know. They did not know. Now they are awakened. They know their work is to counter-check all the things that is happening in their counties. You understand? And now they are coming up. And Ram, let me assure you, they will see a lot of it has been ignited by the Kirinyaga and the Kiambu and the Embu. Most of them now, because they did not know what is happening there in their local assemblies, they will impeach many more. But to come to your question, Ram, about the gender issue, I will agree totally, 100% with my colleague here, Karl Marx, that it has nothing to do with the gender. When a thief steals, he is a thief. The gender does not come in. The background of the community where she or he comes from does not come in. A thief is a thief. And I was surprised to have one of the senior members from the ODM, I don't want to mention the name here, saying, this one, you are fighting a woman. You are fighting. A woman does not come in. A thief has no gender. He has no smell. A thief is a thief. He's plundering.
Manyasi says that this is just a case of wrong timing, because we are looking at the current process of Governor.
I'm an old man. Let me follow my line of thought. You'll get lost. With women, it's not an issue. It is a tendency of our politicians when they are caught on the wrong foot, they hide behind their community, They hide behind the agenda. What has agenda got to do with stealing public funds or running impropriety in the office running of the county? So I'll agree. When we follow a thief, we should not follow a thief because of his ethnicity, because of his gender, because of where she comes from, his educational background, his religious background. We should follow a thief. But, however, I'll agree with the Karl Marx again here. National politics will always play. Who funds the BBI in the county, in our counties? That question will tell us national government has a role to safeguard their members who are very loyal in pushing the agendas of the national government.
Now, Manyasi, when it comes to these impeachments that we are currently looking into, Governor Ngilu's impeachment is now looming, and it comes at a time where we're looking at Governor Waiguru's impeachment. Are you saying, in your viewpoint, that we need to take a pause of Governor Ngilu's case as we deal with Governor Waiguru's case?
Yeah, I just said that the coincidence, the timing was wrong. But let me say a few things. Number one, before I go to the constitutional matters, number one is that all of us know, including my two friends, all of us know that there are men who are governors in this country who have plundered their counties. They have, should I mention names? And
it's enough for that.
I wish you would have allowed me to mention names.
Unless you have the evidence to prove that, but I give you 30 seconds because we want to head over to the
Some
Senate.
of those men are in court answering corruption cases, but they have just been able to manage their MCAs well. That's all.
All right. Now, I'm told that we have the proceedings, the live proceedings of Governor Waiguru's impeachment have taking place in the Senate. Remember, the Senate committee is looking into this, but we have to wrap this discussion here right now, gentlemen. So let's head over to the Senate, but that brings us to the end of Good Morning Kenya. See you again tomorrow morning. My name is Ram Aguko.
Ram has done it again.
I think that is provided in the program, and that is why we are pushing it in the afternoon, so that you also have enough time.
The other issue I would wish to seek your directions is that in our application, in our appearances, we say that we are appearing as council, and we also accompanied by 3 members of the county assembly. In yesterday's proceedings, and most importantly in the cross-examination, and in the governor's address, there were members of the county assembly whom I am with who were adversely mentioned. And you remember the governor making some allegations as to the chief accuser being part and parcel of the trip, that is part and parcel of the issue. They are my instructing clients, and today they instructed me to seek your directions as to whether they can have an opportunity to address the committee on 2 issues. One, the issue of the imprests and the issue of the travel. I have that member who is the leader of the majority of the county, and I also have the chairman of the budget committee. So they sought my intervention to seek for your directions, whether they can have an opportunity before probably the governor goes to address the assembly on those 2 issues.
Mr. Nyamodi.
Thank you very much, and good morning, Chairman and honorable members. I have heard the application that has been made by my learned colleague, and I am taken somewhat by surprise by that application. The petition is, or the motion for the governor's impeachment is a motion by the assembly. The governor made an opening statement, and she said what she did in the opening statement. And I think the course of proceedings today will be very well guided, Chairman, by the guidance that you gave us yesterday, that the person or the office that is on trial or the subject of these proceedings is that of the Governor Kirinyaga County. I don't think there is room for people who feel that they were adversely mentioned, because if we go in that direction, then we will not finish in the time frame in which you have. The Assembly's case is closed. What is for hearing today are the witnesses. Sorry, Chairman. What would happen is we would then have to call everybody who is adversely mentioned, and there would be no time to hear that kind of evidence. So let us focus on the business at hand. We have 3 witnesses who we wish to testify this morning. The sooner we start, the better. Thank you very much, Chairman.
Thank you. I would like to make the following observation on the same. We are guided by the rules of procedure as enshrined in our standing orders, and the same rules stipulate the manner in which we are supposed to handle this hearing. And according to this Honorable Committee, I think the County Assembly case was prosecuted yesterday and closed, and therefore we do not have any provisions of our rules to open up your case again today. So I rule as follows, that we will not be able to accept your application for now, and request the legal team from representing Governor Anne Waiguru to start their bit of giving evidence by Governor Anne Waiguru.
I'm well guided. The last preliminary issue that the County Assembly has is in respect to the witnesses that the governor is seeking to call. It's on record that the day or the time the motion was launched in the County Assembly, the governor was invited by the County Assembly to make a response. That response, which she declined, would have included her calling witnesses, so that then she lays bare her case to the County Assembly. And that then means that even as the County Assembly comes to prosecute the case this morning, they would be in a position to be sufficiently informed of what the governor is bringing forth as her defense. The governor never appeared before the Assembly, either by herself or through her representation. But today, we are bombarded with 3 and 1 very bulky statement of a witness who was available as at the time of prosecuting the motion at the County Assembly, of a witness who would have been brought forth at that particular time. So I'm seeking your guidance. And I am aware that this committee is on a fact-finding mission. The guidance that the County Assembly is seeking, what probative value do we attach to this evidence? The other guidance I'm seeking, and this is in the equality of arms, is whether they will still be considered as having not participated in the County Assembly proceedings, and hence their worthiness to the process.
Council Nyamodi.
Honorable Chair and members of the Senate Committee, I wish to briefly respond. The Senate will note that the notice that was issued to our client, the governor, to appear, clearly stated that she was being served with soft copies of a motion and was supposed to respond to the particulars in the allegations. So the documents that our client has produced are pursuant to the summons given to her. Secondly, pursuant to the provisions we had highlighted yesterday from Article 50 and also from the Fair Administration Act, she's supposed to give a response to challenge the allegation. And she has produced evidence to show that whatever allegations were made against her were not merited. Lastly, I wish to refer this Senate to the decision of the High Court. We have already supplied this in the response that we had given. In the case of Mwangi, Wairia, and others versus the Speaker of Muranga County Assembly, that is High Court petition number 458 of 2015, which I think is very informative of where we are here today, because it states, and I read, the Senate is expected not only to investigate the nexus of the allegations to the first petitioner, which in this case was the governor who was being impeached. the Senate must also interrogate the entire process as it's carried through the county assembly. And I think it is only fair that our learned friend understands that the Senate is carrying out its mandate to find out whether these allegations were valid, whether the process carried out to reach the motion of, to pass a resolution for the motion to impeach the governor had met the constitutional and legal threshold. And this process requires that evidence is produced to show that those allegations are not founded. That is all.
Yes. Sorry. Chair, I want to just make a very small contribution to the matter. The issue that learned colleague, Mr. Njiro, raises goes to the very heart of one of the issues we'll be raising about the right to be heard by the governor. Both in the motion that was submitted to the Senate Speaker and in the documents that were filed on Saturday in further evidence to support the county assembly case, there is not one single document that indicates that the governor was invited, was given an opportunity, what the time was, so as we sit here, there is nothing before you that actually says that the governor was ever called to see. There is nothing. There is no information on that issue. So the Senate is being called upon to accept as a fact that the governor was given an invitation, she could have called witnesses. There is nothing like that in the documents, unless the council can show us where that is in the documents that he has filed. So from where we sit, that process never happened. If it had happened, the documents would be there in support of that process. It goes to the very heart of an impeachment motion. So even before we go as to whether the governor is entitled to call witnesses, our position is that the governor was never given even a single opportunity to be heard. And that is on the record. Thank you.
Chairman, I just want to point out one thing with your permission.
Okay. Proceed.
Chairman, these proceedings are governed by the provisions of the standing orders of the Senate. The Rule 4A of Part 2 of the 5th schedule provides as follows: upon the appointment of a date for the commencement of the hearing of the evidence for the purposes of the investigation, the committee shall A, invite the governor to appear and be represented before the special committee during its investigations. So, Chairman, that provision gives the governor the right to participate in these proceedings. I understand my learned colleague to be saying that because the governor did not appear before the assembly, then she has no standing here. That cannot be correct. And even if it was, the governor has already participated in these proceedings. We cross-examined witnesses yesterday, and what we want to do is a natural follow-on from what happened yesterday. Thank you.
Honorable members, ladies and gentlemen, I think the honorable learned friends, I would like to tell you that in parliamentary language, this is what we refer to as anticipating debate. Whatever you guys are trying to canvass, I think can be substantially be dealt with in the matter. Those issues you are raising about the governor not attending or honoring your summons at the county assembly, those are issues you can raise during cross-examination. And therefore, I will want to assure Mr. Ndegwa that the circumstances of the non-appearance by the governor will be part of the committee's determinations and deliberations when we retreat to do our report. So let's allow the governor to give her evidence, and then the committee will later on decide as to whether it was well for the governor not to attend or for the governor to present her evidence before this committee. So we shall allow the governor to proceed and table her evidence and prosecute her case as we listen. And then you shall have an opportunity, Mr. Ndegwa, to cross-examine the governor and raise those issues during cross-examination.
I'm well guided by the direction of the chair. Yesterday, again, you ruled that we be provided with copies, original copies of the receipt and the original copies of the diplomatic and her ordinary passport.
Yeah.
We want to confirm that the same has not been served upon us this morning, and we shall be using that document in our cross-examination.
So is that the case, Mr. Nyamondi?
Chairman, my apologies to the committee and to my learned colleague. We broke very late yesterday, but the documents are here. I'll ask my colleague to pass them over to him.
That's in order. So we shall go straight to the hearing of evidence by Governor Anne Waiguru. You have 3.5 hours starting now.
Thank you very much, Chairman. We have 3 witnesses to call this morning, and I wish to call the first witness. I'm not sure what the protocol for getting the witnesses in is, but we would like to call our first witness.
Chair, kindly allow me to have an intervention because the extract of the document that has been brought is what we actually have in our files. Yesterday, my application was not premised on a further extract. It was premised on the provision of the original copy.
Can we be served with the same so that we
yes,
make that
the original passport and the ordinary passport, diplomatic and the original. They have just brought a photocopy that has actually been blocked. You can hardly tell which travel that took place.
Chairman, we are producing the documents as evidence, and they are evidence in response. They are not documents that are produced by the Assembly. And we have produced legible copies of the document.
I think the orders yesterday were very clear that you need to produce original. Was it original?
No, Chairman, it wasn't original.
According to the ruling?
A legible copy.
Clear, legible
copy.
Could you give us time to just go back to our ruling so that I refer to...
That's okay, Chair. But even as you go back to your ruling, there is no legible even copy. The one that we have is opaque, well calligraphed to conceal the information that we wanted. That goes on record.
Mr. Ndego, I would like to remind you that our ruling was very clear, that the committee responds to each of the issues as hereunder. On the issue of availing clear copies of the county assembly, the committee directs that the governor provides clear copies of the said documents by the end of 23rd June 2020, serve the assembly's lawyers via email, and copied to the clerk of the Senate. So what you're raising is that the issue of clarity is subjective.
I'm well guided, Chair. Then I'll be making an application for the governor to take the stand, so that then I can be able to cross-examine her on these documents. Simply because, Chair, the documents that I have are opaque. The information is concealed, that you cannot easily discern which travel took place. If then the governor is allowed to take the stand, I will not be then calling, then she'll be in a position to produce the original documents. We don't want to touch it. She'll be in the custody of the governor, then we'll proceed in cross-examination.
Mr. Nyamode?
Chairman, that is a vexatious application. I will repeat again that those documents are produced not in support of Mr. Ndegwa's petition, but they are produced as a response. And the manner in which they are produced is a choice of the governor. What the committee had directed, and we have complied with that direction, is that a legible copy be produced. What we can do, and if Mr. Ndegwa is saying that the copies are still not legible, perhaps they can nominate a photocopier. Or if he is able to furnish me with his email address, we can send him a scanned copy. But as to who testifies for us, it is not his call. He had the opportunity to summon witnesses as the rules provide, and he summoned them. He then cannot now insist that the governor takes a stand. Who takes the stand today is the governor's election, and she's not taking the stand.
Okay. We're only having adulterated copies of extracts of the passport. I rest my case.
Thank you. We shall make that determination in a short while, but in the meantime, we will allow the defense team to start their presentation immediately, and then we shall be communicating our determination in a short while.
Thank you very much. Chairman, if the first witness can be summoned from the waiting room, he is Mr. Joseph Carilas Otieno.
Sergeant at Arms, kindly facilitate the same. Mr. Nyamodi, this is your witness. Should be able to get...
I don't know where the Senate has seated them. We came together and the Senate put them away. That is why I asked that he be summoned.
I communicated that they will be seated in the new restaurant. So Sergeant at Arms, kindly facilitate the same. You should adopt the county assembly model of cushioning and securing your votes and your witnesses. The county assembly made sure they facilitated MCS.
With tremendous respect,
yeah.
We will only copy that part, but nothing else from the assembly. Thank you.
Next time you should be working with your witnesses. Are you the one?
Yes, he's a witness.
No, I can only see the mask. So okay, you, Carilas Otieno, right? So are you the owner of those boxes behind you? Okay, Sergeant at Arms, you'll provide a place where we shall only allow one extra person who will help him use the documents. Mr. Carilas, you'll have a seat opposite the chair. And before that, you will be asked to either take an oath or affirmation before we begin this process. You'll take an oath? Okay, proceed. You can get the dispatch. Can you see? This one?
I, Joseph Carilas Otieno, do solemnly swear that the evidence that I shall give before this special committee in respect of the matters before the committee shall be the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth. So help me God.
Thank you, Council. Before you begin, I would also like to acknowledge the presence of the committee members who are here, and we'll use 2 minutes to make just introductions, starting with my Vice Chair.
Good morning, everybody. My name is Abshiro Halaki. I'm nominated Senator from Isiolo County and a member of this committee, Vice Chairperson.
Good morning. I'm Senator Judith Pareno, a member of this committee.
Good morning. I'm Senator Beatrice Komboka, Special Elect, a member of this committee from Nairobi.
Good morning. I'm Senator Philip Mpaye, Senator Kajiado, and I'm a member of this committee.
Morning, Chair. Moses Otieno Kajwang, Senator Homa Bay, member of the committee.
Morning. My name is retired Justice Stewart Mazaya, Senator Kilifi County, member of this committee.
Good morning, all. Anwar Loitip Tip is my name, Senator for Lamu County, and also a member of this committee. Thank you.
Good morning, Dr. Michael Mbito, Senator Trans Nzoia County, and a member of the committee.
We are also expecting Senator Gidiomi to join us shortly, and also using the virtual platform, we shall have Senator Beth Mugo. I'm sure the connection is not yet. Is it? Senator Mugo, can you hear us? There is a delay. We wouldn't wait for a response, but we acknowledge her presence. So, Councillor Nyamodi, you may proceed.
Thank you very much, Chairman.
Hello, Senator. Good morning. Introduce yourself, Senator.
Hello. Good morning.
Good morning.
Hello, Chair.
We can get you. I think there's a problem with the. We have a delay in communication.
Good morning, Chair. I'm Beth Mugo.
Thank you, Honorable Beth Mugo. Karibu sana. Councillor Nyamodi, you may proceed.
All right. Carilas, good morning. Again, for the record, please just tell the committee your names.
Through the chair, my full name is Joseph Carilas Otieno.
All right. Carilas, what do you do for a living?
Through the chair, I'm a civil servant, a supply chain practitioner, to be specific. Having started my career in civil service at the Treasury back in the year 2010.
What do you currently do?
Currently, I'm the Director, Supply Chain Management Services at the County Government of Kirinyaga.
Okay. And how long have you been in that position?
It's barely 1.5 years since I joined. I was appointed in the 9th of January 2018, but I reported on the 13th February, so 2018. So I can put 1.5 years, so to say.
And briefly, could you just share with the committee quickly what your responsibilities are as the Director Procurement at Kirinyaga
County? Having the responsibilities of the Director Supply Chain Management at the county, I'm the head of supply chain. Basically, I oversee the entire public procurement and disposal of assets at the County Government of Kirinyaga.
Thank you. Have you seen the motion that was filed or that is filed before the Senate by the County Assembly of Kirinyaga for the impeachment of Her Excellency the Governor?
Through the chair, yes, I can confirm I saw the motion.
All right. You have read and understood the motion?
I have read and understood the motion.
Okay. Carilas, have you recorded or did you write a statement in response to that motion?
Yes, I did cancel, and through the chair, I can confirm that.
Chairman, the witness's statement appears at pages 56 to 78 of the Governor's response. So, Carilas, I want to ask you, do you now wish to produce that statement as your testimony before this committee?
Through the chair, yes, I will wish to produce it.
Thank you very much. And you also wish to do you also wish to produce the documents that you referred to in your statement as documents or exhibits before this committee?
Through the chair, yes, I can confirm I want to submit all the documents.
Okay. Now, Carilas, I want us to go straight into the petition and your responses to some of the issues in the petition. And I wish to refer you to page 4 of the petition if you do have it before you. Under the heading Violations under Written Law. Are we together?
Chair, sorry, I think I'm getting distracted. Through the chair, cancel just
Proceed.
again.
Chairman, is it possible to move the witnesses' seat around? He might be standing for some time, and it is an awkward place to stand.
You may carry you may carry the mic. That's better now.
Are you comfortable? Can we proceed?
Yes.
Okay. Do you have the petition with you?
Yes, I do have the petition. Yes, Council, I do.
I want you just to look at page 4 of the petition under the heading Violations under Written Law and Violation of the Public Procurement and Assets Disposal Act 2015, Public Finance and Management Act 2012. This is the allegation made in the petition against the governor. The governor has violated Section 46 of the Public Procurement and Disposal of Assets Act 2015 by usurping the powers of the accounting officer in establishing an irregular tender evaluation committee. And I wish to pose the question to you, is that correct?
Chair, that is not correct.
Who has the responsibility for establishing tender and evaluation committees?
The responsibility of establishing tender evaluation committees is vested in the role of the accounting officer.
Okay. And is it the accounting officer who has been establishing tender and evaluations committees or the governor?
I can confirm, Chair, that it is the accounting officer who has been establishing the evaluation committees.
Okay. Then I want us just to...
Carilas, you may consider removing your mask and just be audible. Huh?
Okay, Chair.
I want us to then go on to the rest of the complaint where it says, composed of the governor's parties and staff, namely Pauline Kamau and Gishira Wayne. What do you have to say about that? Is that correct?
Sorry, just come again.
I will read it again. I will read the whole paragraph for you again. The governor has violated Section 46 of the Public Procurement and Disposal of Assets Act 2015 by usurping the powers of the accounting officer in establishing an irregular tender evaluation committee composed of the governor's parties and staff, namely Pauline Kamau and Gishira Wayne, who directly take instructions from the governor. Is that correct?
Chair, that is not correct.
Okay. Now, I want to point you to a document that is contained in the governor's